Fingers crossed.
And I'm not going to alt-tab out to check it or it's going to crash.
No, no way. Don't even roll the dice on
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Oh, new dongle thingy. Alright, so which campaign do you want to do? So which one did this bring over Last Stand, which wasn't there before?
Yeah, it did. It should be at the bottom of the list when you pull up campaigns. I just checked it a few minutes ago.
Well, I mean, we should probably do that since it was
I feel like that's because we played through all the other campaigns. I feel like it would be cool to just tap into the new one right now.
Yeah, because I think the Last Stand, it was just a survival map.
Right.
A lighthouse survival map, and it just never came over to 2.
Yeah.
I remember this was the only DLC on console that I ever had for the Left 4 Dead games, because while they were all free on PC, it cost money on console because Microsoft, charges for updates and for DLC items. So if you're going to make it free, you essentially just have to pony up that cost yourself as the developer or the publisher to Microsoft. So this was the only one I had because they made it like a thing where, like, if you had Xbox Live Gold at that time, you got this DLC for free. But they didn't keep doing that with the rest of them. I don't know if, like, what the terms of the deal were or whatever. And that wasn't a thing that Microsoft continued to do.
No.
No, they figured, oh, well, they'll still pay for it, so why not?
Yeah. It'll be funny going into this without any, like, at least for me, like, no pre-planned strategies as to how to approach the map and such, and approach certain aspects. It'll just be kind of like running into it head first and hoping for the best.
Oh, it says...
Which is fun, of course.
Yeah, oh, it says level 1, the junkyard, so this isn't the survival map that I was thinking of. This is maybe a campaign. Maybe I didn't play this one, because...
Well, they made it sound like this was developed at least fully somewhat recently, though.
Well, no, because it was bringing over a campaign that was in Left 4 Dead 1 to Left 4 Dead 2 by fans, as well as a bunch of community updates. So I never played any DLC campaigns for Left 4 Dead 1, and I think this came out after Left 4 Dead 2 came out. And so by the time I got the game on PC, everyone was already only playing 2. So I don't think I've actually ever played this. But yeah, this also comes with a bunch of bug fixes and challenge. Bug fixes, balance updates, and also new mutators.
Oh.
Yeah. So we can do mutators later. Right. I should invite you.
Yeah.
That would be smart. Oh, do you not have the game open yet, or?
Let me open it up.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, either you're appearing offline or.
There we go. I think I just got it.
All right. I chose Zoe because I always choose Zoe or Lewis.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I used to always be Lewis. All right.
Let's see if she see in here.
I mean, I see you in here. And luckily, voice chat has not auto-started like we've had that issue before.
Oh, no.
Where the in-game voice chat happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I can change mode. Campaign, realism, survival, bleed out, chainsaw massacre, death's door, flu season, four swordsmen, gib fest, hard 8, headshot, healing gnome, hunting party, Iron Man, Left 4 Dead 1 co-op, which I guess means you only have the items and special infected of Left 4 Dead 1.
Oh,
Same with Left 4 Dead 1 survival, last gnome on Earth, nightmare, rocket dude, room for one, special delivery, tank run. I mean, I think we'll just stay with the normal for now, unless any of those sounded good to you.
No, I think the normal sounds good for me, honestly.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I forgot how to ready up.
Just vote to start.
Wait, where?
I'm in the campaign lobby right now.
Yeah, I'm also in the lobby. Oh, wait, I can just click start this game, I'm a fool. I'm like, I don't have to ready up. I'm the host.
I was about to say, like, yeah, like, only one new person needs to do this, right?
Well, there are some multiplayer games where even as the host, you have to ready up.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think this is one of the 2 campaigns that bridges Left 4 Dead 1 to 2. 2 got one, which I played one, but 1 also got one. And I forgot that this existed and didn't play it. Which a lot of people probably didn't, because a lot of people, since they're like, oh, 2 includes all this content from 1, might as well just buy 2.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, some of me thinks that 1 is a little more balanced, but it's probably just because it's a little easier.
Yeah, well, that and it's like, we've talked about this before. I think 1 particular atmosphere more than 2 does.
Yeah.
Like, 2 is obviously the more polished, shiny looking game. I do really like the atmosphere and the overall just feel of the worlds and the maps in 1, just as much, if not the second one, at least aesthetically.
Yeah, 2 is, I mean, a little more in depth to the lore, but it's also a little sillier, which makes sense because it's a 4-player co-op game.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like meme material waiting to happen with all the silly dialogue in 2.
Yeah, initially I felt very poorly about 2, but I like 2 now.
Yeah.
A lot of people also hated 2 when it came out just because they were like,
Looks like we're gonna have to walk out of here.
It's only been a year.
Bad feeling about this. Ooh,
Yeah, I didn't know until recently. I was watching some YouTube video that people were actually upset at the very fact they were making a sequel at all.
Yeah. Well, it's... I'm gonna bring my audio levels down.
Okay.
It's partially because, they promised all this DLC support. And so, when they announced a sequel so quick, a lot of people thought, oh, so is that all gone now? Which, it wasn't all gone.
No.
But maybe it would have been... Maybe the support would have been greater if they didn't immediately do a sequel. But yeah, Valve said themselves they were confused because they were like, we've never had anybody angry at us that we made a game so fast.
Yeah.
It's always been the opposite. Oh, have you seen, So I'm sure you know what Reshade is, right?
What now?
Reshade. I might even make my audio a little quieter. Just because it's a loud game.
Yeah.
So Reshade's like this program that can put post-process visual effects onto existing games.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they're not as good as something being actually in the graphics pipeline of the game, but you can only do so much modification. And the great thing about Reshade is that since it's post-process, you can put it on almost any game rendered in 3D.
Okay. Yeah.
And so... Oh, fuck.
I'm good.
So some people have been putting post-process ray tracing into games.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff in ray tracing lately.
Yeah, so it's not as good as normal ray tracing because since it's post-process, it can only deal with what's in the frame buffer. So meaning it can only be screen space. There's a Molotov over here. But recently somebody posted their ray tracing reshade setup for ODST, and it looks fantastic. Just seeing all like the colored lights reflected on the rainy night streets.
Yeah, that's the one thing about, I will admit, as much as we've talked about how like AMD and Radeon is better performance for the price, well not better performance, but like similar performance for the price, ray tracing is the one thing that everybody, and that is kind of cool. I mean,
yeah,
especially as far as like sharpening up older games to just have more realistic fighting and such.
Yeah, I mean, they also have ray tracing stuff in the works. I just don't think they expected Nvidia to like put out ray tracing so quick.
Yeah. Well, one thing about ray tracing though is like I feel that's like I've realized that ray tracing is not like an automatic just into having a better looking game, because like if you abuse ray tracing, it can actually make the game look kind of ugly.
Yeah, it's still, the problem is because realistic lighting doesn't always look good. I mean, that's something I felt about games for a long time, where sometimes they would strive for realism, instead of necessarily, you know, direction. Like, because if you have to think about it, like in a film, you know, light already works the way it works, presuming you're not using CG. And most films use CG now, so, but...
Exactly.
The way films look isn't just, this is the way a house would look, it's, all the lighting is staged. And so you have to be mindful about ray tracing. The other thing is that we just don't have enough ray tracing power to ray trace everything yet.
No.
So it's usually you only get ray trace lighting, or ray trace global illumination isn't. Or you get shadows, or reflections. Yeah, there's a... Oh. I think we're going up this hill.
That seems about right.
I'm gonna throw this propane tank. Oh fuck, oh fuck.
Do it.
Yeah, turn off the flashlight. Let's just move through as fast as we can. I'm gonna throw this fire behind us. The witch is behind that bush.
Oh god, which bush?
Just keep coming towards me.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Okay, let's keep going. No, Francis.
Oh god.
Francis.
Son of a bitch.
Oh.
Oh god, I'm getting a bit swarmed here.
It's still a shame that those Left 4 Dead 3 plans never happened, because this game's still really fun. I just think a lot of people abandoned it since, you know, the same content for a cajillion years.
Yeah, that's fair. Oof.
Especially since there was a long period of time where I couldn't play Left 4 Dead just because I was so burnt out on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of game that, like I was telling my brother-in-law, like, it's definitely the kind of game that needs to be played with friends.
Yeah.
It's a party game at the heart of it.
Like, I'm glad that you can play it single player if you want to go through it that way.
And I've done that a little bit, and it's been, you know, fun enough, I guess,
but the real strength is 4-player, which I need to see if I can get 4 people together for it. There's a pitchfork here.
So I think I'll swap that out for my shovel.
Oh, fuck. Thank you, Lewis. So yeah, the nice thing about Reshade is that since it's not full ray tracing, I mean, obviously there's some negative effects. Like, yeah. I mean, the effect is more minor. Like, you can use it to enhance screen space ambient occlusion, or you can do reflections, but they're just like nicer screen space reflections since it can only mess with screen space.
Yeah.
But it means that it's significantly cheaper, meaning that you don't actually need dedicated ray trace hardware.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is mainly for use on older games if you don't have dedicated ray trace hardware, but ODST falls into that category. ODST isn't hard to run, and so you can use that extra GPU headroom to do some, like, simple processing effects, or I guess more complicated ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people have said, like, they're running it with, like, 1080, some people much less than that. Yeah, and I think the ray trace part of Reshade specifically is developed by some guy outside of Reshade. It's on his Patreon. So I'm not sure if you have to pay for his Patreon to get it. But I just think that's neat.
Yeah, no, it's just cool about, like, being able to, which is, like, the advantage of doing ray tracing on older games, is that it's not going to be that demanding.
Yeah.
I feel like the one thing that, like, it's like, important to watch out for is that, like, applying the ray tracing so that, like, everything starts reflecting.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Quake 2 did, is since the game is so easy to run, they pushed the ray trace so that, like, it's the most ray traced game out there, because nothing else is stressing the hardware.
No, not at all.
So instead they made the ray tracing insane.
Yeah.
Okay, should we look around to see what kind of points we have to defend from before I pull this lever?
Yeah, let's strategize as much as possible. Okay, so where would they swarm from? I'm just looking for like open areas.
Yeah, I mean, there's this fence here that they'd crawl over.
Yeah.
I mean, they might come down from the mountains, but I don't know. Let's see. I mean, there's this path back here that we came into here from.
Right.
There might be a huge set piece where a tank breaks out of some of these cars or something, just knowing how this game works.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, even on normal, it's not very forgiving as far as like how well I do especially effective.
Especially since this is like a special DLC campaign, they always do crazy shit like that. I mean, there's that moment in that one Left 4 Dead 2 campaign where like you pretty much always fight 2 tanks at once.
Yeah, that's so stressful.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Okay, well, the longer we take to prepare, the more infected spawn. So I'm gonna pull the lever.
We just gotta go.
Yeah. So someone's... Is there a turret up here? No, there's no turret up here. There is a hunting rifle, though, on this roof.
Okay. I see it, yeah.
Yeah, so that might be good for picking stuff up. Off. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of equipment.
Do you have any, like, do you have a Molotov or a pipe bomb?
I have a pipe bomb. Does everyone have med kits? Okay, everyone has med kits. We have one med kit in storage. I'm probably going to end up needing it, or Lewis, considering our health.
Okay.
Oh, there's floodlights lit up. Well, do we need to turn those on?
Let me go see.
I'm gonna get to one, if I can. Are you up there?
No, I'm going towards the floodlight.
Okay, a smoker got me. Okay, I'm free.
Okay,
Lewis got me.
Okay. I turned on one of the floodlights. It's
Okay.
really fast to turn them on. So.
I'm going towards this one.
Okay. I'm going towards
There's a jockey. I don't know where, but I hear it.
Alright, I got 2 turned on over here.
Okay, I'm throwing a pipe bomb.
Okay.
Okay, the jockey got me, the jockey got me.
Okay, I'm coming towards you.
I didn't realize all the AI abandoned me. They all followed you.
Alright, I'm throwing a pipe bomb.
Okay. If you and the AI could protect me while I heal myself.
I got you.
Is that all the floodlights? I don't see any others. Okay, so
I got 3 of them, so
there's a hunter in here. I got it. I just came in here to grab the other med kit.
Okay.
I wonder
Charger.
Yep.
I got it.
Thank you.
No worries.
Someone else, an AI, took the med kit from me.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I'm pulling the lever. Please guard me.
Alright, where are you? Oh, I see it. I come.
Okay, we can get through now.
Okay.
I put on adrenaline so that I could get through fast. Francis and Lewis are fucked.
Oh no, we have to go back to them?
No, I think we should leave them.
Okay.
They're so low on health.
I'm getting a little stuck here. Ah, shit. I'm formed.
I'm trying.
I'm almost out of this.
Oh my god.
No, I'm not. Oh, not the jockey. God, no.
Yeah, I have to get the jockey first, or it'll get me.
Okay. I think
Okay, Francis is somehow still...
No, he's okay.
He's still there. Yeah, Lewis is gone. I don't know how Francis is still up. Oh, there's a... Okay, so... Okay. Lewis had a med kit. Zoe's very upset that Lewis is dead. She saw his corpse and screamed. I scrounged him for his med kit, though.
Just looking for a better gun, so I think we're good.
Does anyone need these pills? No, it doesn't look like it. Because you have you have adrenaline, and Francis doesn't have anything. But
Alright.
his health is good. I'm the only one with a med kit right now, it seems.
Yes. Might be pulling that down. Where's the charger?
Oh, the boomer's right. Oh, fuck.
Boomer, god damn it. I didn't know he was there.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking for him. He got me, too. Oh, there's the charger. Hello. Oh, I didn't realize that Francis was...
Oh.
I think you got him. I'm so glad there's the text in this game when a special infected dies. Oh, I took so much damage from that charger.
Yes, you did.
There's another medkit on the ground here, so I'm gonna use mine. Thanks, AI director.
Yeah.
So have you heard all the weird stuff about the Crisis remaster?
No, I knew that was coming out, but I didn't.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
So I've been sending you the videos on that. So unfortunately, it is based on the PS3 360 version.
Okay.
Just because, as much as the PC version is the better version, the console version is more multi-threaded.
Okay.
Which is what we need. The Switch version turned out pretty good, all things considered. But like they all look aesthetically different, all because they're working from the PS3 version slash 360 version, so they look aesthetically a little different. They all use something called Svohi, which is a new tech from Crytek. Well, it's not a new tech exactly, but it's something they haven't been able to implement just because it was too expensive for most projects. Sparse voxelized global illumination, so it uses voxels like 3D cubes. Also, I'm trying to come towards you. Oh, you found Lewis.
Yeah, I rescued Lewis.
Oh, it did not. It's not playing the tank music for me. So I thought it was a charger. Is it broken?
I don't know.
Like, did they not get the audio cues set up right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, that audio system's probably complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, he's dead. He's dead.
Jeez, still going off on my heart.
Okay, so I do need healing, but I'll heal you.
Okay.
That's gotta be the safe house in that building, right?
Let's see.
I hope so.
North.
Pretty sure I saw that.
No, it is
It's not?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, there's an upper floor. Maybe there's something besides two infected fighting each other up here. There's a teddy bear in a bed, which is unfortunate. It sounds like a jockey and a charger. And a horde.
Oh god, okay.
I'm gonna take these pills then. Oh my god. Oh.
Got you.
Okay. Oh, whoa. What was that? What the fuck flew through the air? Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna jump down on top of the car. And then get down. Cause we need to go.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a cabin here. Hopefully this is the safe house.
That must be it, right?
Yes,
Okay,
there's the safe house door.
Good, because I really need to pee.
Oh, okay, good. I'll tell you more about the Crisis remaster and all the different versions.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, you go pee. I'm gonna protect Lewis. He has like no health, so he's so slow. Yeah, you go pee. I'll close the safe house door after Lewis gets in. Hopefully he doesn't die. Oh, poor Lewis. We left you behind. Oh. Are we even gonna make it to the end? Oh no. Oh no. I was right about the lighthouse. Oof. That's gonna be fun. So wait, did that come with The DLC on Xbox Live? Did I get this extra campaign and never play? Oh, I guess I'm never gonna know.
Okay. I'm back.
So, I was right about the lighthouse. This is a 2-part campaign.
Oh, I see.
We're entering the lighthouse finale. So, I guess the lighthouse is just a survival map from this, which makes me wonder, did I have this campaign on Xbox Live and never play it?
Maybe?
I mean, I may have. Who the fuck knows? Okay, well, there's the better weapons here, so I'm grabbing the SMG.
Are there any spray weapons? Oh, good, I need a spray weapon.
Yeah, that's what I grabbed too. I usually grab the auto shotgun. Or unless you meant spray by the spray of the shot. They're both spray, they're just different kinds of spray. Ocean spray, cranberry juice. So yeah, with the Crysis Remaster stuff, so the Switch version seems pretty good. That one mission that's omitted from the console versions is still omitted. But Crytek also says it's less than a performance thing, it's more that just we don't think it's a good mission, which it isn't really. It's a mission where you have to fly in a VTOL through a bunch of tornadoes, and the tornadoes are physics objects.
Sounds like a thing.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's horrific. It also spins the camera around a lot. Like a ton. So, but yeah, so it has SFOHI, which is sparse voxel illumination, so it essentially creates a voxel grid through anything that's rendered. So you know how SSAO creates those little shadows around things, like screen space ambient occlusion? Like if you look near these objects and turn your flashlight off, you notice it's dark around them? Like,
yes.
That's something that you usually don't do with shadowing anymore. It's something that's done with screen space ambient occlusion. Well, there's 2 new improvements Crytek had. There's a new type of screen space ambient occlusion, which is directional, and it also includes the color of the object, so it's not just darker. That's in the console versions and on PC. And sparse voxel illumination, SFOHI, which is essentially makes the lighting look more realistic based on object information, lighting direction, and the object. Like, it makes lighting scenes look more realistic without pulling out full ray trace.
Oh, okay.
Even the Switch version has that. The thing is that with the updated improvements, like they updated some of the textures and the assets and they look really good, but there's other stuff that looks worse in the new console versions and on PC. So like the snow, there's a new texture for that, and that looks bad.
That's unfortunate.
A lot of the materials are improved, but the materials of character skin are actually worse because they're based on the console versions. So a lot of characters look really sick because their materials aren't as good and the lighting's more realistic. There is ray tracing, and it's all software. So you can run it without ray trace hardware. It's just reflections. And it's not as good as hardware accelerated ray trace reflections, but it's better than no ray trace reflections. They're also optional. And they can run even on the consoles without ray trace hardware. So and the PS4 Pro can run the ray trace mode, which is pretty crazy.
That's a big plus, honestly.
The foliage isn't as reactive as on PC. Like the original version, it's cut down. Let's see. Also, the time of day lighting is different, not necessarily better or worse, just different presets.
Yeah.
There's some other shit, and it's so much that Digital Foundry has done 3 or 4 videos examining all these different ports and going like, there's so much to examine, and there's some stuff that's much better and some stuff that's much worse. And the other thing is that the new version on PC doesn't perform that much better. With all the new features, even on like medium settings, you can't get this thing running at 1080p 60.
Yeah, it's funny. I bought like the best AMD card for that price when I bought my PC, and it is still having a hell of a time with the frame rate drop on Crysis 3.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, I'm getting good performance on Crysis 3 for the most part, but I mean, I guess it depends. But the problem with Crysis is that CryEngine is too CPU heavy. The main problem is you can get such a good GPU, but the main problems with Crysis and Crytek in general is that it's too CPU heavy, and CPUs haven't advanced that much. And the thing...
And I didn't splurge on a really great... Got the, the Ryzen 5, which is a great CPU, but it's not it's not a really, superpower workhorse kind of a CPU at all.
And the problem is that it heavily relies, even though it's more multi-threaded than it ever used to be, Crytek still relies, CryEngine still relies on strong single-threaded performance, which is mainly an Intel thing, but they tested it with the best GPU and the best single-threaded Intel CPU you can get on the market, and they still could not get 1080p 60. So, there are some things that are much nicer in this remake, but there are some things that are worse, and the thing is that the main reason I wanted this remake was so that I could get better performance on modern consoles or PCs, because you could optimize it more. But the thing is that that's just not what we got. And even though it's more multi-threaded, the AI is still based on Lua script, which is heavily single-threaded. Most, if not all, of the physics are still on a thread. And most of the object loading is still on one thread, like the draw calls.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're supposed to activate something clearly, and I don't know what it is.
I'm trying to... I thought there should be something in that upper room to turn on, but...
Yeah, me too, because, this is here.
There's a radio in there, but it didn't give me any prompts.
Yeah, there's, a gate down there, but I don't know how to open the gate. And, there's all these buttons, these boxes that you'd think you can activate. What? That doesn't look usable.
I just pressed E even though it didn't give me a command, and something just happened.
Wait, did that even advance anything, or is that just a Easter egg? Because the radio just broke.
I'm not sure. I'm kind of confused.
It might be that this update still needs work.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because even though it's out, you expect hotfixes and stuff to come later.
Yeah.
Oh, don't fall down. I still hear a boomer somewhere.
I'm trying to see, is there a clear path open somewhere?
Yeah, is there somewhere we're supposed to jump down? Hello, Hunter.
Oh, Lord.
I'm sorry that all the hot topics are closed because of, COVID. I say that, but in middle school and high school, I was very often just wearing a hoodie with the hood up. I think it was the dysphoria, though. Maybe a little bit of the angst, but mostly the dysphoria.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going down there with you just to make sure the AI doesn't all stand by me.
Yeah, I'm right back with you.
Or, the opposite, where they all follow you. You'd feel like if you have two players, the AI should split up, but no, they love to just follow one person. Wait, did we come through this road, or did we come through this sign that says Cliffside?
I don't remember.
Well...
Oh, this is new. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, this is the cabin we came out from.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Okay, so this watchtower, which seems like the object you focus on, instead of doing something up there, which is what you'd think, we were actually supposed to come through here and then turn right and follow this road, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think, unless it's blocked. Which it may in fact be blocked by this bus.
Okay.
This bus for Valley Church. So, never mind. I still don't know what we do.
This tank. Oh, that's a charger. Never mind.
Oh. It sure found you. There's gotta be something we're missing. I guess... Okay,
Yeah,
we don't go to the lighthouse. Do you think we just jump down from here?
God, maybe.
It seems wrong, but it's
Well, it's oh yeah, no, there's new. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I'm grabbing a defib in case someone dies.
Yeah.
But
in case meaning when somebody dies.
Hope it's not me. Well, if it's me, someone else should grab the defib off of me. Okay, so here's the lighthouse. So that generator in the basement is what we start. I know this because of the survival map. In the survival map, there's a bunch of shit to throw around, but I don't think there is in this version.
We got pipe bombs, molotovs.
We got pills, which I might
Yeah.
preemptively, well, unless there's a med kit.
And I have adrenaline too, so I should be set in case anyone emergency.
Yeah. There's ammo and some weapons up here. There are med kits up here. There's 4.
Oh, medkit's perfect.
So I'm healing myself right now. Should I carry a med kit or a defib? Okay, everyone grabbed med kits. So I'm carrying this defib. Everyone has pills. The AI doesn't have a bomb, so we should hand them bombs. We can't hand them bombs. If we point them out, maybe. So I did another YouTube video with my friend Eric, who I before
I'm not sure.
with me. Either way, we should do that sometime. I think you two would get along well.
Oh, surely.
I'm trying to point things out to them. They're not smart enough. I don't think I dropped... Oh, I did drop those bombs, because I'm like, I accidentally grabbed bombs in a row. Okay, so, yeah, Eric and I did this on survival. We did not last very long. So, the thing about this house, I mean, it is just survival mode, which is much harder. Oh, there's 2 more medkits inside the house. On this inner shelf here. Because it might be good to prepare. So, like, if you come into the door, right here, 2 medkits.
Perfect.
And then on the shelf, it looks like there's more adrenaline and pills. There's a propane tank here we should throw somewhere.
I think, yeah, I will throw the propane thing.
But, like many things in Left 4 Dead... Oh, there's also a machete. These walls are destructible. Like, if you sit... We tried sitting in the bathtub. What we called the bathtub strat.
Right.
And surviving. And they broke through the walls leading to the bathroom.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, we can also walk up here. That doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, shit. Press to work.
But what you can do is there is a way onto the roof. There's a ladder right next to the door. That's the entrance that we came in through first.
Okay. I see.
Yeah. And then there's another ladder to get up here for a high point of view to shoot stuff from. Also to get a good overview. So I think down here where that car is, I'm pretty sure the boat docks down that road. I don't know because in survival mode you never get rescued.
Right. Oh, there's a bile bomb up here.
Oh. I might want the bile bomb.
Yeah, you do the bile bomb, I'll do the pipe bomb.
Yeah, this gas can's green, so it's not usable.
It's not small.
Oh, there's the dock, right here behind the house.
Perfect.
But I don't think we can jump down that cliff. I would jump down. Ow. Yeah, you cannot survive this. So yes, you have to go down that road and then there's some stairs.
Okay.
And also I took enough damage that I'm going to use a second med kit because I'm a fool.
We have plenty. It's fine. It was worth a shot.
Well, the thing is that I fell from higher initially than I meant to. But yeah, that dropped all the way down there. I like this text that says Ray was here. I wonder if that was always there or that was added by the developers of this update. Because it's written in a different color.
I've noticed a text on the walls that, like, thank you to somebody. I think there's probably, like, some community content stuff going on there.
I mean, it might be. I mean, there was already writing on the walls because it's Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways,
yeah, so...
Is that... That looks like a picture of Jeff Ramsey from Achievement Hunter. There's no way it is, right?
I can't imagine so.
That would be whack. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's the only gas canister we get, which is weird. You'd think we'd get more. So yeah, place that where you think would be good. They come from all directions. Like I think they come over the cliff. They definitely come from down there. I think they'll climb up from behind.
I'm probably gonna put the propane tank in the road here.
That is the issue with putting it in the road is that
shit! No, it's falling down the hill. I can't keep track of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that area is not very defensible. Because you can't place it. Do you want to see the stairs that we have to go down?
Yeah, let's do that.
Just since nothing's spawning, which is good.
Yeah, refreshing, right?
I just want to make sure that we're okay. I know it's super long, but
No, the longer the better. I mean, the more. Okay. Oh, okay. I
yeah.
see.
So we
now. Yeah.
walk down these stairs, and that's where it is.
Okay.
We're probably best up here, just since that's where all the supplies are. But if worse comes to worse, we can move down there, and we'll have to move down there eventually. We'll have to make our way down there.
I'd say like the minute we get like a little bit of space, we just come down from our high tower and just fucking go for it.
Yeah. So once you get in your position, the AI getting theirs. You should watch those digital foundries on the Crisis remaster that I sent you. I sent a few. I can send them again, or you can just look up their YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, sure.
But it's such a weird mixed bag. Like, part of me still wants to get it, but I was kind of set up to get every version. Like, oh, I want it on Switch because that's fucking insane.
Yeah, right?
I want it on PS4 or Xbox One because I want to be able to just sit down and play with the controller and presumably have it be better than that. And I want it on PC. But now I'm like, I kind of just only want it on Switch now.
Yeah.
Especially since I'm at the point where I can run the original Crisis at 60 frames per second sometimes if I turn down some of the settings to high from very high and if I run it at a low resolution. But like with the
I can get away with that too.
Yeah, but with the higher material quality and with the higher draw distance and stuff, and with them not fixing some of the long-standing issues with AI and physics code, but at the same time physics is turned down. Like fence posts no longer break individually and whack shit like that. Which, you know, to be honest, was probably a little much. I just thought they would do a better job recoding the entire thing. I was hoping for more than they could probably deliver, realistically.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, like, considering the time they had, it's not like there was any, like, pressure within the fan community to have this remaster come out. I feel like it would have been worth it to really hash out every single detail as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I wish that they did that.
How old was Crisis 3, like 2011?
Or it's Crisis 1. It's a Crisis 1 remaster.
Oh, well, right, exactly. There wasn't, like, a huge, like, demand for this set in the market. I feel like it would have been worth it to just put more time into finishing it. But, I don't know, maybe
I mean, maybe the amount of retuning they needed, though, was a total ground-up remake. Like, because some of the code issues are so long-standing, like, with the AI, like, there's no way to multi-thread Lua script, I don't think. I think they'd have to recode the AI. The physics, it is possible to multi-thread that. Probably a pain in the ass, but it is possible. Same with the asset steering. But maybe a full-on remake is what we needed. Maybe it's also just that Crytek couldn't afford it. Documentation than you get from Unreal or Unity.
Yeah.
But also just because it's harder to run CryEngine games on consoles. I know they've had some success with Hunt Showdown. Which does look like a good game, but again, the problem, like with many Crytek games, is that it's just hard to run. And, well, PC gamers, a lot of like hardcore PC gamers love that shit because they're like, ha, it's pushing my PC, that's great. The average person is not interested in having their games run like shit because there's new tech features.
Yeah.
With like a few exceptions. Like, you really have to shock and awe someone in order to get away with that. Like Flight Simulator.
Yeah.
Like, Flight Simulator's like, yeah, it runs like shit, but like, it's the entire world being simulated with real-time weather simulation and volumetric clouds and shit.
Yeah. I guess there's nothing wrong with making a game where the technology might have to catch up with the game, per se.
Yeah. I think the problem is that also, because games are more expensive to create just because of the fidelity required,
Yeah.
I just wonder if the market's really there for it anymore. Or maybe it's just really that nothing Crytek has made has gripped people enough to have it be worth it.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, it's not like Crisis was ever as like a popular game as like like a multiplayer title of some sort, like
Yeah.
Call of Duty or something. I don't know.
Like, it had multiplayer. I think the multiplayer was fun, but
Sure.
it never had the staying power that a lot of other
Yeah.
games have. And let's be honest, the story of Crysis is a joke.
Yeah, it's pretty generic, like military kind of a. It's always the same military story over and over again.
Oh, it gets so much worse. So you know how you play as Prophet in... Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. What? Prophet in Crysis 3? And how you play as Alcatraz in Crysis 2? Like, I'm gonna spoil some stuff if you're okay with that.
No, I don't care.
Okay, so in the first Crysis, you play as Nomad, and Prophet's in your squad.
Yeah.
Nomad dies off-screen.
Yeah.
So in the second, you play as Alcatraz, you know, Prophet's there, and he's like, I'm infected by the alien stuff. I'm gonna kill myself and give you my suit.
Yeah.
They just say it so seriously. So, in the third Crysis, you know how you're playing as Prophet?
Yeah.
Apparently the suit DNA in Prophet's suit turned Alcatraz into Prophet.
Okay.
And at the end of the game, at the end of Crysis 3, he takes off his suit and is just Prophet. And they act like that's a good ending. It's like, what, you... Are we not going to deal with the fact that the suit morphed one guy into another guy? And Prophet's just like, yeah, I stole his life, but that's fine.
I don't know. But I guess that's why, like, I was never concerned with the story in any of the Crysis games that I've played. Because I've played a bit of 1, a bit of 2, and a bit of 3. And it's one of those games where it's like the voice acting is disproportionately good to the fucking story.
Yeah, the thing is that, especially in Crysis 2, I feel like the voice acting is really mixed. Like, some characters have really good voice acting, and some characters do not.
Not so much.
Nathan Gould. Anytime he talks, I feel like his lines, I feel like he did not get that much time. Yet,
Yeah.
I feel like all of Psycho's line deliveries in Crysis 3 are really good.
Really good. Oh yeah, I agree. Psycho's like one of the more enjoyable characters just because he, you know, it's like I always appreciate in a video game when a character just talks like a normal fucking human being.
Yeah. He was not like that in Crysis Warhead, the expansion pack, Crysis 1.
Oh no.
That one was done by a lower budget team.
Oh, I see.
Obviously because Crysis 1 was too expensive. And also that's how most expansion packs used to get made. Is the main team would develop the game, and then they'd start working on the sequel while a B team developed the expansion. I mean, that's how the Half-Life expansions also went. As they were developed by Gearbox.
This is a pretty good development studio, by the way.
I mean, Gearbox is really mixed, because sometimes they do really great shit, and sometimes they do Duke Nukem Forever, or Aliens Colonial Marines,
Yeah,
two of the worst games we had in the last decade.
Yeah.
You should heal yourself, the medkits are out.
Will do.
Sorry, where are the rest of the propane tanks? Oh, they're all the way down there. I need you to come with me. We need to go get them.
I'll follow you.
Yeah, because I'm like, if you wait, the AI, one of us will die.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, it is a bit of a ways, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's another one even farther. As dumb as it might sound, I think we should grab them one at a time, just because I think if two of us are not shooting...
No, that's fair. I'll just be right behind you and cover you while you're carrying.
Yeah, oh, there's also one on the top. We'll grab that one last.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a boomer. Thank
Got
you.
it. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, Hunt Showdown is apparently really good. Do you know about that one?
Which one?
Hunt Showdown.
I have not heard of that.
It's kind of a battle royale, except that there's very few people, and it's mostly AI. So the idea is that you get characters that have permadeath, by the way, and progression.
Yikes.
So your characters can get stronger over time the more matches you win or survive.
Oh, that's kind of
And
a cool concept.
there's multiple big monsters on the map. And the idea is to find a big monster, because they're not always in the same place, using audio cues and other clues that you can find, which the audio systems in this game are really strong. Behind that tree, there's a spitter.
I got him.
And the idea is that you, either by yourself or with your team, depending on the game mode you're playing, I think, go in and kill the monster, get the bounty, and then leave. Other teams might try and kill other monsters or the same monster, or they might let you kill the monster and then kill you and take the bounty and leave.
Right.
So there's a lot of not just PvP elements, but PvE. You can end up getting killed by an enemy team, or you can end up having, like, if you get too close to chickens and stuff, they might make a bunch of noise, and then even if you don't hear the other players, you might hear chickens or dogs or whatever AI components they're fighting to try and place where they are. And so, yeah, so as someone who doesn't care for Battle Royale, that seems interesting, but the thing is that with all the audio systems, like the way it simulates audio, and, you know, the graphics and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's very hard to run. And there are console versions, but they run like shit. Like, or they look like shit in order to run better. Oh, I got boomed.
Okay.
I shot it, but I didn't protect myself enough.
Fair enough. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like boomers are such a simple thing to deal with. And, like the part of your brain is like, okay, I just need to shoot everything as fast as I can. It's like, no, not the boomers. That's anti-intuitive.
Yeah, like anytime another infected gets me, I'm like, okay, that's fair. Unless it's a witch, but then it's usually AI. But anytime a boomer gets me, I legitimately feel dumb.
Same,
Oh.
but yeah, at the same time, I always make the same mistakes with the boomers. It's like, oh god, it's
Oh my god, it's two tanks, it's two tanks, it's two tanks, it's two tanks.
Okay, we gotta get a distance. Oh,
I'm taking pills, I'm taking pills.
Oh, pipe bomb.
Oh my god, oh my god. Okay, you might have to leave me behind. It threw me at the bottom of the map.
Oh god, I'm backing up.
And I used my pills.
I'm losing my adrenaline. No, I'm down. The AA's gotta save me.
Oh my god, oh my god.
I'm not doing
Oh my god, I didn't realize Chihiro was in here. Hello!
The AI's dying too. Alright, we're gonna start this one over.
That's okay. I mean, I killed the tank after it downed me.
Okay.
Francis, unless... Oh, Francis saved you.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he saved you. You gotta save Lewis, and the boat's getting here. Oh my god.
I revived Lewis.
Oh my god.
Okay, I revived Lewis.
Okay, get your ass down here if you can.
I'm going towards you.
We might still have a chance. Oh my god, thank you, Francis, thank you, Francis.
Okay, adrenaline going. Good.
I have no adrenaline, so I'm just going.
Okay. Fucking jockey, get the fuck away from me. Oh my god.
Okay, I'm just getting down there, I'm getting down there. I know I'm alone, I'm getting down there.
I'm on my way down too. I'm close to you.
Oh, there's a boomer, there's a boomer, there's a boomer. Okay, I killed it, and did not get boomed.
Okay. Oh god, we're all together. No way.
Oh my god, I can't believe if we make this. Oh.
That'll be a barn burner. Good catch.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, if this gets me, I'm over with. Is there anything in this room? It doesn't matter. That's another tank. Oh, we just have to leave Francis. We just have to leave him. I'm so sorry, Francis. You're the one that saved me.
Well.
He's throwing a rock at the boat. I'm so sorry, Francis.
Hey, we made it, though. We made it, though. Alright, I'll be back with you in just a minute. Gotta pee.
Yeah. We made it, though. I didn't think we were gonna make it. Where did Chihiro go? Oh. Francis died twice. Rip. I used all the first aid kits. Where Where'd she go? Where's my chumpus? Dun 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 dun.
Oh, that could have gone a lot worse, honestly.
Yeah, I can't believe we made it. Poor Francis died twice.
You surely did.
I used 7 medkits. I always do this. I'm like, I'm good at Left 4 Dead, and then I look at it and I'm like, no, I'm absorbing all the damage and using up all the resources. I'm not good at this game. Even if I kill them with special infected, if you look at the damage to kills ratio, mine's always very bad.
Yeah. Well, at least you're better than my friend Joe that makes a point to only use melee weapons for an entire section of a campaign.
I mean, I think melee weapons are fun, but
It's fun, but not always like the best idea.
no. The thing is that there is something visceral in the back of my brain that's just like chop everything up.
It is fun, and to their credit, they did make that a very satisfying mechanic.
Yes. I used to think it was dumb because it's not realistic. And I'm like, what? All this other stuff is realism. I'm like, no, Vivian, it's filmism.
And I think like it lends to the fact that like if you want to conserve ammo early on in the game, you can just use a melee weapon if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, the pistol has infinite ammo anyways, but the pistol requires much more skill and in general I think has less stopping power. I mean, it has range, but you really got to be aiming for like the head.
Exactly, like you don't have to have a good aim or be good at first-person shooters to get through Left 4 Dead. Like I said, it's more of a strategic thing.
Yeah, and the other thing about melee weapons is that without them, it's so hard when you get a ton of zombies grouped up on you. It's so hard to get them off of you. And
because the time in between strikes will literally kill you.
Not to mention that they nerfed meleeing with a gun in Left 4 Dead 2, and the melee weapons was sort of like we noticed some people just melee forever and just run through the game.
Yeah.
And that's not really fun.
No.
So their concession was to nerf that, but then give you actual melee weapons, which I think that's a good exchange. And I think just in general, I was just upset about Left 4 Dead 2, especially somebody who couldn't buy games often, just buying Left 4 Dead 1, and then Left 4 Dead 2 comes out, and I'm like, what the fuck?
No, it's so soon.
Yeah, like, it's great, but it took me some time to come to realize that. And I guess I can kind of understand that also, because I hate yearly releases. I hate games that come out every year. Because I'm like, I can't drop $60 down every year on anything.
No.
Like,
no, exactly.
I also can never drop the money down on games that drop 1 million pieces of DLC. I only get all that DLC years later when it's bundled for dirt cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to mention the ethics of buying games that are yearly releases, because you have to think those dev teams are under constant crunch.
Yeah, that's hard to even think about.
Yes. Same with perpetual updates. Apparently, like the Fortnite team had talked about how they have really high staff turnover, because once it became successful, Epic made them crunch 24/7 to always be putting out updates.
God, it's so stressful.
Yeah. I mean, like, Warframe has major updates, but I feel like they're spaced out way more than Fortnite. But I think Epic knew that Fortnite is a fad, and so they want to get as much out as they can. Which, there's nothing necessarily wrong with fads. Like, Fall Guys is a fad. As much as you're seeing Among Us everywhere and you might be tired of it, it's actually pretty fun.
Oh yeah, no, I've been considering it. Well, it's like $5 on Steam.
It's also free on mobile, and it's crossplay.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like for $5 to join in on a fad for a bit, it's not bad.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, and I don't usually go all in on fads. I don't usually get something because it's a fad, but hey, if it looks good. And usually I wouldn't expect it to be fun, because generally I don't like those kind of social deduction games, just because I feel like some of them are so mechanically barren that I feel like I have nothing to base anything off of.
Yeah.
But the mechanics in Among Us are just thin enough to not be too involved, but also just enough to really give you something to do and to give you a reason to judge someone's actions. But there's so many of those, especially tabletop ones, where like it's so thin that I'm like, why am I making any decisions? None of this makes sense.
Well, I was thinking about it like when someone was describing Among Us to me, I'm like, oh, so it's Trouble in Terrorist Town, which was kind of a simpler reduction of that whole concept, but
I mean, yeah.
well, you know how it is, like Valve, like old school Valve multiplayer games, like Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, like there's something about the mechanics of that game that it is like purely based on speed.
Yeah. And
like when you're playing Trouble in Terrorist Town, like you cannot fuck up even the slightest, or you will lose every encounter where you're trying to get rid of an enemy. Whereas
yeah.
like with Among Us, it's like, okay, so I don't have to worry about my reaction time. It really is just kind of like a fun reduction game.
Yeah, and while that can be nice in Trouble with Terrorist Town, the problem is, I mean, one, you have to have Gary's mod. Two, you might have to have Counter-Strike Source. I think they fixed that recently, so you don't need the textures from Counter-Strike Source. But again, there's no guarantee that people who made mods for Trouble in Terrorist Town have it. And, like, that's a pain to set up. Gary's mod and Source Engine are, as much as I love them, they're old.
Yeah,
They're not, they're crusty. The user interface isn't fantastic.
no, it's not.
Like, there's probably a lot of people who are interested in that type of game, but are never going to play it just because of the stuff required. And also, because of that, they're tied to PC. Like,
Exactly.
you're probably never going to see that stuff off of PC.
No, because it's all like fan made.
Yeah. And it's all tied to Source, and it's not like Valve's ported games to consoles. As much as I'd love just like a collection of Valve games, just like, man, if you just ported the Orange Box and Half-Life 1 to Switch, like,
That'd be revolutionary.
I cannot tell you, or like how much you could revitalize Left 4 Dead if you ported Left 4 Dead to Switch and made it crossplay with PC. Like
that'd be huge.
That'd be amazing. They won't do it.
No.
I wish they would do it.
I feel like at this point, as far as like when it comes to Valve making new games, and they're obviously going to be making new games in the future, they've made their intentions very clear that they're focusing on VR.
Yeah, VR, and if not VR, then PC. I mean, Valve doesn't like consoles much. I mean, part of that's to do with, one, they hated developing for consoles with like arbitrary restrictions. Like, they really hated. I mean, they tend to like Microsoft consoles, and some people are like, Gabe Newell said this about the PS3, so the PS3 is going to fail. He said it was dumb. Partially because of the way you're developing. Like, you have to remember that Gabe Newell started working at Microsoft on Windows. So, like, he's used to Microsoft development environments, so of course he prefers the Xbox. It has nothing to do with the consoles.
No.
The Xbox makes so much more sense for him to develop on, and the idea of a new development environment for one box to him seems dumb. Like, of course PlayStation seems dumb to him. You have to see where he's coming from. He's like, everything we've worked on was for Windows, and when we did Linux and Mac stuff, it was only because... It wasn't because we wanted to develop for a different box, it was because we don't want Microsoft to control everything. Which, also, the PlayStation's a different walled garden. Like, Valve doesn't want to move from one walled garden to another walled garden. But the other thing is, he recently said that he prefers Xbox Series X over PlayStation 5, and I'm like, yeah, of course. You don't seem to... Like, Valve knows video games and video game services. They don't necessarily know about console ecosystems. And they also hate consoles because of that shit that happened with the Half-Life 1 console port. How Sierra ended up owning the rights to that. And then Vivendi owned the rights from them, and that's why Half-Life Decay isn't on PC. And also why the content, like the models and the other content for the PS2 version of Half-Life aren't on PC. It's because of the way that worked with the publisher, is they don't own it, and that was one of the major reasons for developing Steam. Is not only was working with publishers a pain, but specifically how they owned some of the content on the console versions.
Yeah. It's honestly kind of upsetting to me at this point that, considering how some companies like both of the major consoles and for PC gaming, there's been some crossover finally, like especially for Destiny, I've noticed that like if you want to play Destiny on console, um, that's not a big problem if you want to do crossover to people who play Destiny on PC. Like that's pretty cool, but like even to this day, like sometimes like my YouTube feed is filled with like videos about people just bitching about PC versus console and vice versa, and trying to make these shallow arguments on either way to defend both over the other, and be like, well, why can't we get to the point where there can just be some more crossover?
Yeah, platform.
Because the difference isn't like some kind of like some massive intellectual difference between using one or the other. I think it's more just like your situation in life. Like
Yeah.
me, like I don't when I had a laptop, that was my laptop. That's all I had to play games, and I didn't want to spend money on a console because I didn't grow up with consoles.
Yeah, and I grew up with consoles because we had a shitty PC that was garbage,
Exactly.
and also because I had siblings to play games with. And if you want to do 4-player video games, there are games on PC that do that, but they're mostly like hot seat, like you gotta swap in and out. And, like, you know, you're not finding Mario Party on a console until years later when you can emulate it, and you buy 4 controllers. But then it's not even situated in front of your TV, probably. Like, you can do it, but that's not what it's built for.
People are gonna do it that way anyways.
Yeah, like I'm in like a weird spot of like I play a ton on consoles and I play a ton on PC. And I also hack my consoles and also have a PlayStation Classic which I hacked. Except that I need to get a powered USB hub because the PlayStation Classic draws power just from a micro USB cable. And the USB that has all the hacking stuff in the games installed on it draws too much power, and so the system browns out.
Oh.
So I'm just playing it stock now. But like I'm in a really weird gaming space, and I realize that some people are just gonna buy a box, and not only that, but one box. Because how many people who own consoles try to own all the consoles? That's not normal. That's a me thing.
Well, that's more. It's either like that's either like an enthusiast thing or a I have the money to throw, that sort of situation kind of a thing.
Yeah, for me it's an enthusiast and not an I have the money to throw. I get almost all of this shit down the line when it's cheaper.
No, yeah, and that's fine. I mean that's where you are. But like I said, like why can't there be a little bit more? Like transition more between from one to the other, so that there can be more of a social aspect, despite
that
you're using.
Because like the number of games that have crossplay are so few, and it seems kind of arbitrary. I mean, I guess if some games were coded specifically for one game's online architecture, it might be harder to move that over. But like, it's still like the fact that Minecraft is crossplay between all platforms except for on PlayStation. Like, if I create a realm on Minecraft, people on Windows can play it, people on mobile can play it, people on Xbox can play it, and people on Switch can play it. But the PS4 version can't.
Yeah.
Because of Sony's dumb bullshit. And Microsoft has been trying to push for it.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's like, I feel like Sony has a little bit of clout as far as the fact that they kind of live and die by their exclusives, though, honestly, which is, I think, a strength and a flaw.
Yeah.
Because, yes, their exclusives are fantastic. They have some fantastic exclusives, but they'll always alienate people who may not be interested in the first-person campaign experience kind of a deal. Like you and me really appreciate like a first-person single-player campaign experience, but if you grew up your whole life playing multiplayer games, then like why would you even give a shit about that?
Yeah.
Why would you bother with Sony stuff?
And as good as a lot of Sony's cinematic first-person stories are, so what if I just want to play the new Mario game? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Which is why Nintendo has like always been at the top of the game, because they make the most accessible products with some of the most accessible consoles.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's dumb about it is that people have gotten so obsessive about which box they like better, which is somebody who has all the current boxes. I'm not signed up to get all the new boxes. That's something I'm not going to have until like a long time from now. I'm not buying a launch console. It's so expensive. They're so hard to get because of availability. They're bound to have flaws. And it's very rarely do we get where the first console's the best one. Like, some people like the first PS1 because of the way it outputs audio. And the earlier PS1s also have a port on the back, which was removed later, which is good for hacking. And the first PS3s were backwards compatible, but they also had such severe overheating issues that they're like all dead.
Oh no. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I have a fat PS3 that's not early enough to be native backwards compatible, and its thermals are still horrific. But I'm not going to re-thermal paste it because I will likely break it because of the way the motherboard is. It is very easy to break your whole system trying to remove the cooling fins, the heatsink.
Oh no. The thermal pasting is a little tricky. It's a bit of a tricky process in and of itself. That's just dealing with fragile hardware.
Yeah, way trickier trying to do that. Not to mention some people say that it has to do with the solder and you should reflow and resolder your motherboard. And
oh, that's a lot of fuckery that a lot of people are not willing to go through.
We also don't know if that's true. And anyways, I cleaned out the dust from mine, and that's as far as I'm going. And if I have to replace it, I have to replace it. I will cry, but like, as someone who has all the boxes, I like the boxes for different reasons. Like, I like the PS4. I like that it can play modern games, but I don't like how if you buy a game digitally, you have to uninstall it and then reinstall the digital version if you had a disc version, instead of just moving over to digital. Well, the Xbox One does that. If you had a game on disc and then buy the digital version, or even have the digital version via subscription like Xbox Live Gold or Game Pass, it'll go, oh, I see you have a license to this, I don't need your disc.
That's just one of so many reasons that we've already talked about, like why Microsoft's a bit ahead of the game. Not necessarily for the quality of their products, but I should say for consumer use.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that they're ahead of the game now, but last gen it was the opposite. Like, last gen it was Sony pushing for cross-platform, because usually the person pushing for cross-platform is the person who's not in first, to look like the better person. Sony was talking about cross-platform because they knew Microsoft would say no. And Microsoft pushing for cross-platform, what Sony didn't expect is that Nintendo would play ball. And that PC would play ball. They didn't expect anyone to, and then Microsoft's still pushing forward with it.
And now they're being left behind. Now.
But there's this other shit, like there's the story, like, Stop Skeletons from Fighting discovered this, but you know about the HD DVD player on 360? How you could buy an external player to play HD DVDs because the 360 inherently only played DVDs?
Right.
They didn't do that because they thought that was a good investment. Microsoft thought that the future was digital movies, and so they pushed out the HD DVD player to sabotage Sony's Blu-ray, because people would buy a PS3 to get a Blu-ray player, and so Microsoft kept backing the HD DVD format, only to make the format war last longer, hoping that they could gain control of digital movies. And that's also why they paid for exclusivity for Netflix, why you could only download Netflix on the 360, and you had to get a disc if you wanted to watch Netflix on Wii and PS3 for a little while. Later you could download it. Because Microsoft wanted to own digital movie distribution, and they wanted to sabotage physical media for as long as they could to gain a hold of that market. And they still don't have a hold of that market. Unfortunately, streaming became much bigger than Microsoft expected. But, like, Microsoft did a bunch of anti-consumer shit. Like, also, you needed Xbox Live Gold to watch YouTube or Hulu or Netflix. Like, you needed to pay for Premium Online to watch basic video services on your console. And the whole Microsoft points thing. So, like, you know how you can add money to your Steam wallet and it's just money?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Microsoft did a thing called Microsoft Points, where you would buy physical cards at stores or convert your digital money into Microsoft Points. Nintendo did this too with Wii Points, but the difference about Wii Points is that one Wii Point was 1 cent. Microsoft Points had a conversion rate of 80 points to $1. To make it more confusing, so if you spent $20 on Microsoft Points, you got 1,600 Microsoft Points. And only to make it confusing how much you were really spending.
Yeah.
for the explicit purpose. Not only that, but part of the reason the Zune failed, besides all the other reasons the Zune failed, was that the Zune, you could only purchase digital music from the Zune store or the Zune subscription, which was a good deal in retrospect. It's the same cost as Spotify, like $15 a month. But you get to but you got to keep 10 songs at the end of it. And if you think about it, a song was $1. So you got to stream music before Spotify was popular, and then you got to keep 10 songs at the end of every month. So that's a good deal. It was just bad timing and tied to a bad product. But also, the Zune store used these Microsoft points. Not to mention, the Zune store used the Microsoft points, I think, before the 360 had really solidified those. So there was all this dumb shit that Microsoft pulled off that was super anti-consumer last gen.
Right.
And now it's that Sony's on top, that they're being pro-consumer. And Nintendo's also doing a bunch of anti-consumer shit, like suddenly tying things to an online subscription, which is only $20 a year, but it's garbage. Like, the online's horrible. The online used to be horrible because it was free. Now it's the same horrible online. It just costs money.
Yeah, that is like the one complaint about like people who were playing when Super Smash Brothers, the new Super Smash Brothers came out, that the online was just really fucking sticky. The
online's horrible, and not only that, the mode selection in Smash is worse than it used to be. They used to have 2 modes, and that's it. Well, I guess besides tournament mode, you used to have for glory and for fun. For glory was no items, serious stages without stage hazards.
Yeah.
So like, fighting competitively. For fun was crazy stages, you get items. But now, everybody sets what rules they want, and then it just matchmakes you with other people, and it randomly selects somebody's rules. And they'll change back and forth. Like, the only way to create a lobby is you can create a room, but you have to like invite people to it. Which is also a pain because there's no messaging system in Switch. You can't shoot someone a message, and the only way to voice chat is in specific games. You can voice chat if you use the Nintendo Switch Online app on your phone and keep it open. It's awful. Not to mention, so you know how if you pay...
Don't hold that thought for a second, I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's peeing a lot today. A lot of peeing. Do you guys like to pee? Leave a comment. Ugh. Kind of weird how this Left 4 Dead video is mostly talking about other video game stuff and barely any Left 4 Dead, but I guess that's how I go. It would make more sense if you were to keep playing and talking this, but instead you just get a freaking menu. I'm so sorry. At this point, this video and the last video I just recorded, the one on Halo Wars mods, have turned into a podcast.
Alright. You're saying about messaging people?
Yeah, there's no messaging services built into Switch's shit at all. Like, you can't send a text message any way whatsoever, and the only way to do a voice message is in specific games. You can talk using the Nintendo Switch Online app, which at that point, just use Discord or something. Just use Discord or Skype or anything. The other thing is that it's almost impossible to join a game. Like, you know how you can send game invites?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not here. Not Nintendo Land.
Oh no.
Yeah, which... and the other thing is that some games, you have to add friends lists that are separate from your normal friends list. So, like, say, on Animal Crossing, I have to become Animal Crossing friends with someone separately from being Nintendo friends with them. So that means there are people I'm Nintendo friends with, but I can't just see when their island is open or message them within Animal Crossing because we haven't met in each other's towns in Animal Crossing yet. So I'd have to message them on another service, tell them to open their town, come over, and then friend them on Animal Crossing. Like, what a pain. And the other thing is, you know how Steam has Steam Cloud? Like, cloud saves. Other platforms have that as well. I don't know who kicked it off first, if it was Sony or Microsoft, because Microsoft has their own cloud services, but Sony's PS Plus came later, but originally wasn't required for online. Originally, it was just your games would auto-update, you'd get special deals, and you'd get special demos that instead of being separate demos, is you could play the full game for a limited amount of time, and then choose to buy it, which was neat. Rip to that's gone.
Oh.
And then they were also the first subscription service to offer you 2 free games every month. So that used to be the incentive to pay for PS Plus. That's in everything now, sort of. In Switch Online, it's just the NES and SNES games, which I guess is nice, but we used to get so many more of those games with Virtual Console, and as shitty as Virtual Console was, this is worse in some ways, because we get even less games. But also, you don't have to actively buy them, so it's...
Well,
and
it's funny you should mention that, because when is like the deadline for Nintendo's going to like put the axe down on emulators? Online?
They're always trying to. The thing is that, well, ROMs are illegal, emulators are not.
Oh.
Yeah, there was actually a case that set this as precedent in the 90s. There was this company called Bleem, and they made an emulator called Bleem, which emulated PlayStation games on PC. It wasn't a very good, in fact, by now, it's a shitty emulator by our standards now. But back then, it was before the PlayStation 2 came out. It was when the PlayStation was still out. You could buy this software to emulate PlayStation games, and the way that it would work is you would put a PlayStation game in your PC, like the legit copy, and it would just emulate it. And since it was on a PC's 3D accelerator, well, it's technically less emulation. Back then, it was seen as a positive. You could run it at a higher resolution, and without the affine texture warping, and with texture filtering, because your PC could do those things. Nowadays, generally, that's seen as poor emulation because it's not accurate, but some people still choose to do it because they don't like the look of PS1 games. I like to keep it faithful, but yeah. And the other product that they did, which I think this was the one that Sony was even angry about, was something called Bleemcast. And so the idea was you would buy a Bleemcast disc, and it would have the emulator for multiple PS1 games on it. So not all of them, so you buy different Bleemcast discs that would emulate different games. The idea was that instead of coding a general emulator, they tweaked the emulator for each release, which is kind of what a lot of commercial emulation is like nowadays. Like, say if you buy the Castlevania collection or something, they don't just bring over the general emulators from PC, also due to legal reasons. But what they do is they make an emulator and they tweak it for each game. That's also how Nintendo's Virtual Console used to work, is they coded their own N64 emulator or whatever, and then they would tweak it and add code as they needed to for each release. And so how Bleemcast would is you'd go to the store and buy the disc and pop it into your Dreamcast, and then after Bleemcast launched, you'd swap it out with the real game, and then on a Sega Dreamcast, say, you could play Metal Gear Solid.
Right.
Which was crazy, because then you didn't even need to buy a PlayStation, but you could buy PlayStation games and still play them on your Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And so Sony was pissed, obviously. They took Bleem to court, and Bleem said, we haven't done anything. Like, you still have to buy your games. We're not pirating your software. We're not doing anything with your hardware. And the important thing is that it's a black box emulation. Like, if you take apart the console and figure out exactly how it's constructed and then recreate its circuitry in software, that's illegal. Because let's say, like, if I took apart a PlayStation and then made an exact replica of a PlayStation on my own, that's patent infringement, because I'm copying their hardware. But say if you just put code into the console and see what comes out and try to mimic that, that's still legal. Like, well, you can copyright the exact words in a program. You can't copyright the general purpose of a program. And so what Bleem was doing was deemed legal because in the end they weren't ripping off Sony products. They were just making code so that you could run official Sony products that you officially purchased on non-Sony hardware. The thing is, though, Bleem went away because even though they won the lawsuit, it drove them into bankruptcy. But it has a really ironic end, in that the lead programmer from Bleem was hired by Sony to code the PS1 emulation on the PS2, and the PS1 and PS2 emulation on the PS3. So he now officially writes emulation code for Sony, or did.
Well, I guess he won then.
Yeah, and that's where we got the wonderful emulator Pops that runs on the PSP and PS3, and which they didn't put on the PlayStation Classic because they hate us. So yeah, emulation is legal. Nintendo can't do anything to shut down emulators unless, say they used code from those Nintendo leaks that happened. Like, if they use actual Nintendo assets, like, they can't do that. They can shut down ROM sites, but they can't stop people from making their own ROMs. They can just stop people from distributing them. So as much as Nintendo would love to shut down all emulation, they can't. They can only find ROM sites and take them down.
I mean, and that's just kind of like an endless loop of like copyright striking sites.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the exact same situation with like movie studios trying to copyright websites like 123movies.to.
Yeah, I mean
they're always going to be taken down, but someone will always bring them right back up.
I mean, the other thing that annoys me is that piracy doesn't necessarily equate to a lost sale. I mean, because one, when I pirate games, I'm generally pirating something that isn't sold anymore or is only sold as used copies, so the developer doesn't make money anyways.
Yeah, no, the reason I got into emulation is because I wanted to play like one game. You know what one game that was that I wanted to play? Was the Samus game that was first person.
Oh yeah, Metroid Prime. And at that time, the only way to buy Metroid Prime legally, I mean, it would probably be to buy a whole Wii U system and then buy the Metroid Prime Trilogy Collection digitally for $20 on the Wii U, and then use a Wiimote to play it, and then you don't even probably want to play it that way.
No, exactly, and like, I just wanted to play that game. It's like, you made a good point, when I first met you at Tacoma Community College, you knew where to find a pirated version of the original Halo game, because I think there's a lot of truth to that. So many years later after its release, the company has made as much money as it's going to make off of a product released at a certain time.
Yeah. Plus, there was no legit way to buy Halo PC back then. Like, you could buy a used copy, but it's not like Microsoft is selling new copies. And
no, I mean, you pointing me towards like the Pirate Bay version of that. Like, what was that? 4 years before Steam finally was able to put the Master Chief Collection on their library officially.
I mean, I think maybe even longer than that. I mean, because
wasn't it just late last year that they did that?
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. So yeah, like 4 years before that happened, and we had no way of knowing that was going to happen. And now that it's out, we both plus we both have MCC on PC now because it became available to buy.
Yeah.
Or
no idea that was going to be the case because Valve is kind of an unpredictable company in many ways.
And so is Microsoft.
Exactly.
I mean, Microsoft had abandoned PC gaming and actively sabotaged it for years.
Yeah.
So there's no way we thought that, they'd put Halo, arguably their only important IP, I guess before buying Bethesda, onto Steam.
Yeah. Or did they actually end up buying Bethesda fully?
Yes. And we don't know what that's going to end up like. And some people are like, well, Microsoft's being good, and I'm like, I worry that Microsoft will be good until they're the majority in the console market, and then they'll stop, because that's what they've done before. They act like the good guys when they're behind. And I can hope that this is a long-term change, but...
Yeah, it's a weird thing for me to talk about Microsoft, because I'm friends with somebody whose member is one of the higher ups in Microsoft, and he's an extremely intelligent dude. And he has like a wizard brain for both science and the technology side of things. He's the guy who's kind of like one of the brainchilds behind backwards compatibility.
Yeah, which I love back compat, and that's one of the things the Xbox One has over the PS4.
Yeah, no, exactly. But like as long as there's guys like him and his friends who I know personally who are in Microsoft, I know Microsoft can do a lot of good things, do a lot of intelligent things. But you do make a good point, though. It's like you said, like Sony was the guy. Sony were the people who were like, oh yeah, no, we're all about cross-platform right now, because that's kind of like good for your public reputation.
Yeah, and the other thing is that even if those good people are in Microsoft,
That doesn't mean their opinion's going to go through every time.
yeah, I mean, there are other people who are calling the shots, or it also depends on your goals.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you have good people working at Microsoft, and then they don't want to work at Microsoft anymore, and then they leave and found Valve. And then Valve becomes a monster in its own way.
Yeah. I guess if I was to take like a positive aspect on Microsoft buying Bethesda, is that we all know Bethesda is the kind of company that will make titles who, at their core of their content, are great games and very beloved. But we can't lie when we say that Bethesda has some consistent technical issues with their games.
Yeah, consistent technical issues, and then also the way they've gotten greedy just with 76.
Yeah, I mean, Fallout 76 is like almost like a joke among the gaming community now because it's so fucking broken in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, some people hope that this is good also because they also acquired Obsidian. And Obsidian are the ones that made Fallout New Vegas, which everyone thinks is like the best Fallout.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
And so some people are hoping that this means an official sequel could happen. And, well, I do think that new management Bethesda could do with, especially since Bethesda itself is largely run by nepotism. Most of the people who have good positions in Bethesda are because they're friends or family members of other people in Bethesda, which is why everything's always so janky. It's because, like, yeah, I'm the lead animator. I don't know anything about animation in video games, but I'm still in charge.
Many other aspects of the game, for that matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hope it turns out good, but again, it could just be like, hey, congrats, these games are on our platform now. And even though now Sony is letting Obsidian publish on other platforms, and they're letting Double Fine publish on other platforms, there's no telling if that could happen, like, what the future looks like. There's, like, every time I think I know what the future... Like, I think about everybody who said that Nintendo should be done with in the Wii U era, and that they should stop making consoles, and that they should become third-party publishers. Right. And then the Switch came out. Like, it's just there's no telling how things will completely change just in a few years.
Yeah, because it takes like just the right amount of people to have enough good ideas for corporate to push through to be like, okay, now we have the Switch, and now fucking everybody has a Switch.
Yeah, and it was like root for Nintendo the underdog, and now it's like root for Nintendo the ones charging $60 for Wii U ports for Wii U games that used to cost $20.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such an ebb and flow. Like you're right. It's unpredictable. It kind of depends on how the market reacts.
Yeah, and also what they can get away with at the time. Like bringing 3 Mario games onto Switch, 3 3D Mario games. Hooray! They're limited time only for no reason, even digitally. Why? They didn't put Galaxy 2 in for no reason. Why? They're not ports, they're emulation. When we know they have the source code and Galaxy was originally intended to run at 60 frames per second and they could do that, and fans have made Mario 64 run at 60 FPS in widescreen, but Nintendo can't.
Well, that's the funny thing about Nintendo is that, especially for like people like you who have a good awareness of games from every point in time, like Nintendo as a company has a very long and rich history of games that are not available anymore.
Yeah, Nintendo's horrible at making games available, and when they do, they pull this Disney Vault bullshit, where they're like, it's available for now, and then it's gonna go away, like, oh, yeah, you know you bought this game on Virtual Console on the Wii? Yeah, you're gonna have to buy it again if you want to buy it on Virtual Console on the Wii U, if you can. And then, guess what? You bought it on the Wii U? It's a Super Nintendo game, so you're going to need a new 3DS if you want to purchase it on a Virtual Console on the 3DS. And even if you bought it on Wii and on Wii U, you have to buy it again still, even though we know it's in your account. Just like, oh, like.
Imagine how much easier life would be for both Nintendo and consumers if they took the amount of time to dig in and re-release all of the classic, nostalgic, and dare I say, rare titles that they have turned out in the past 30 years. Imagine if those were all just available at the Nintendo store right now.
Yeah. Or if you could give us like a $6 collection and go like, yeah, here's all of our first-party NES games. Yeah. Or if they just put all of their first-party stuff. Like, I understand why they can't put third-party games. Like, I understand if Nintendo can't put Chrono Trigger on SNES Online. They have to work with Square. Square is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But like, how many times do you have to code SNES emulators? It's like, I know that you can emulate Donkey Kong Country 3. Why not just put it out there? Just put all your first-party games out there. Just do it. Like, you don't want people emulating their games. They're emulating them because they can't get them.
Yeah. I feel like that's part of underestimating the age group of people who are interested in Nintendo products. Like, they have been making admirable titles since the 1990s, which means they have an older generation of people who can both afford and will spend the money on older titles.
And they know it.
And they know it, and that's why I'm confused when Nintendo is so paranoid in how restrictive they are of their product, or their past products, and that they don't just, like, present their older products in the Nintendo store and make them available to people, because people will spend the money. People will easily spend the money. The older generation who has the money to spend on that will drop the money.
Like, we know that it's possible to run GameCube code on the Switch. Not natively, of course. Absolutely not. Like, even if you took the source code and ported it to the Switch, you might need to edit it because it's totally different architecture. But, like, the Switch has the power to, like, emulate GameCube games, especially if you have the source code and know the inner workings of the GameCube, to get most, if not all, GameCube titles running on there. There might be special exceptions where things don't run accurately due to the, the differences in architecture and the way that they exploited that. But, like, you know how expensive, like, I was talking with the other Zach today, and he was talking about how, like, he doesn't like the Switch Mario Party that much, and he's like, the best Mario Parties, like, I always go back to 5 and 7, and I'm like, 6 is pretty good, and he's like, I've never played 6, and I told him about 6, and he's like, I'd love to get it, but it's so expensive, because GameCube titles are expensive in the used market. Like, if they could just put out Mario Parties, like, 4 through 7, or better yet, if they could do 1 through 7, although maybe not 1, because of the legal stuff with 1. If they could just give us a bunch of old Mario Party games and slap them on the Switch, hire a company that will do that emulation work for you and just do it. But instead, it's like, ooh, I want to play F-Zero GX. It's $1 million. I want to play Fire Emblem on the GameCube. It's $1 million. Like,
yeah, because when something is scarce, people know that they can charge that much for it.
Like, I'm lucky to have physical copies of those Mario Party games, of all the US Fire Emblem games, of F-Zero GX on the GameCube. But I got lucky, and that stuff's exceedingly rare and expensive. Like, it's very high demand. Like, even Melee, which was the best-selling GameCube game of all time, the demand is so high that it's not super easy to get a hold of a copy of. And even if you want to play Melee, are a lot of people who are more casual Smash or gaming fans in general willing to put down the kind of money and work that you have to do in order to get a copy of Melee? I mean, a lot of people aren't, not to mention that the copies are scarce, and those discs are, one day, all the discs or all the disc drives in the GameCubes are going to break.
Yeah.
Like, emulation is going to be the only reason we still have that stuff.
Yeah, which is why it's like, it's upsetting that Nintendo isn't pursuing restoring their older titles more aggressively.
It's funny because, like, they were one of the first to do that with the re-releases on, like, they would re-release NES stuff on, like, Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advanced, and, Virtual Console was a big deal. I mean, technically, I think it came out after Xbox Live Arcade, because technically Xbox Live Arcade came on a disc for the original Xbox. But like that wasn't very accessible. You had to have Xbox Live, you had to have an original Xbox, you had to have this weird disc. You had to have your Xbox original plugged in or with the shitty Wi-Fi adapter, which was horrible and isn't that common. Like Nintendo was like one of the first companies to go like, hey, you know these old games that a lot of people disregard because it's the era of gaming where we've decided anything pixel art or 2D is bad and that everything has to be 3D and presumably realistic and also high end? Like, hey, guess what? You can play Super Mario World, $8, go buy it. And now, they're just like, I understand that apparently Virtual Console became a proposition that made less and less money for Nintendo, because the problem was that a lot of people go on there and they'd buy Zelda, and then they'd be like, okay, I have Zelda, cool, and then not buy all this other shit.
Yeah.
Which I, as the person who bought the other shit, was like, why? But then also, the cost of the ROMs, it's like $8 for Super Mario World, doesn't seem like a bad idea. But then once you start adding more and more SNES games, it's like, am I going to pay $8 for each one of these? Are all of these even good? But like,
that's really quick, yeah.
I mean, the other issue is that we've solved that problem, one, with big, huge compilations. Like Sega's compilation of like a fuck ton of Sega Genesis games.
Yeah, easy money.
Or Nintendo has already solved that problem with NES or SNES Online. Like, make it into a subscription service. Make it like, you know, a streaming service. I mean, a subscription service for classic games. Except they won't put any games on there. There's so little on there. There's so much less. We used to get 2 Virtual Console games a week. 2 or 3. And we complained about that. And it's so much worse now. Like, just dump them all on there. We already have to pay per month anyways. Just do it. Like, there's a reason I have to have complete ROM sets, and it's because you keep doing this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I guess Nintendo will figure that over the... Well, here's the thing, like, Nintendo will either figure that out in time or they won't.
I'm betting on won't.
Yeah, because their current track record says that they're more concerned with opting off of their newer titles.
Yeah, and when they re-release older titles, they want to do it in a novelty way, like the SNES Classic. As much as I still want one, I know I want one because I'm dumb. I know I want one because they're exploiting specifically me.
That's what's so much about it, is that if they would just drop it and leave those titles in the stores, it's not like they would somehow be less profitable than if they made an exclusive or a limited time edition sort of deal.
I think it comes from Nintendo's history as a toy company, is that they're like, we need a big product for the holiday season, so they drop something out, make it seem limited even if it's not, and then they ensure that all of that stock is sold, and they, like, as a toy company, that's also why they do so much weird stuff that nobody else would do, like Ring Fit Adventure. Wonderful idea, really good fitness game. Nobody else could think of that. I mean, other companies have tried to do fitness games, but usually they're not fun and they're pretty soulless, or they are fun and they don't help you exercise.
No.
And also, let's not forget the fact that Nintendo is the one that popularized the exercise game. They definitely existed before, but Nintendo's the one that really put a lot of polish into that concept. But, like, the definite negative side of Nintendo being a toy company is that they exploit their consumers in a lot of the same way and focus on doing very limited releases of products to make them seem more valuable than they are. Like, I think it's less about making the most money off of that individual product, and I think it's more about Nintendo maintaining the value of their brand. I mean, that's also why Switch games never drop in price, for the most part, like other games do. Like, you know, if you want to buy a lot of first-party Sony games, you can probably get them cheaper years later. There are a lot of Nintendo games that are just never going to drop in price. I mean, there are a lot of Pokemon games released ages ago that if you want to buy them from the used market, they're either the same cost that they used to cost if you bought them new, or more. Yeah. And, like, Omega Ruby, if you want to buy that from the Nintendo store, it, like, the eShop on the 3DS, it still costs the same. Like, I think Nintendo, it's a very similar thing to Disney. Like, Nintendo likes the way that Disney does things, and they like the way that Apple does things. Like,
It's kind of a kid-centric market.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the way I describe it is they kind of want their brand to be like an aesthetic.
Yes.
Yeah, they want a certain image to be associated with their brand and a certain value, and the way that they maintain that value is through artificial pricing and scarcity. Like, they don't want you to just be able to buy Super Mario World at any time. They want you to be hyped as fuck whenever Super Mario World gets re-released for the 30th time.
Yeah.
Because, oh boy, I can finally play it on whatever this other device is.
Well, that's exactly why I think Nintendo would benefit from, like, a different aspect of marketing that would, I guess, for lack of a, well, this is the exact word to use, to exploit the nostalgia factor.
Yeah, Nintendo loves that. And I think the reason that we don't see Xbox doing that as much is because, let's be honest, they have much less nostalgia to play with.
Yeah, they don't have quite as long a version history as Nintendo, per se, which is why Nintendo should jump on that, because there's a lot of 30 to 40-year-old gamers who probably miss a lot of the titles they used to play back in the day.
Yeah.
And would absolutely flip their shit to just spend a few dollars to be able to play those games again on the convenience of a Switch or whatever they want to play it on.
I think Sony also could do that too, because Sony wants to exploit their nostalgia in the same way. I mean, look at the PlayStation Classic. Sony's just... The difference between Sony and Nintendo is that Sony's very bad at exploiting that. Like, the PlayStation Classic had a lot of issues. And as much as Sony is bad about Nintendo's bad about keeping their games available, Sony was good on the PS3 and the PS3 making games available, and then they were awful on every other device. Like, the only way to play older games on the PS4 that haven't been specifically remastered by whatever company are A, to buy PS2 classics, which are not very good emulation, and there's almost none of them.
No.
Like, the PS2, the most successful console in history, there's like 20 games that you can get on the PS4 for it. There's like 20 games, and a lot of them suck. Like, why do I want to play War of the Monsters or Twist of Metal Black over some of the stuff you didn't bring over? Like, having that stuff available isn't inherently bad, it's just all the stuff you left on the table. But the other thing is that, like, to play PS3 games, the only way is through streaming through PlayStation Now, which is awful. Like, the streaming quality is bad, you get a lot of connection issues, it drops out. And it's not even inherent to game streaming because Project X Stream, Microsoft's streaming product, works fantastic. The streaming is phenomenal. Like, even on your phone with, like, streaming off of phone data, not even just Wi-Fi, you get a much better and more consistent connection than you do on PlayStation Now. And PlayStation Now has been around for a while. Well, Project X Stream is new, and I know Microsoft has, the Azure servers, so it's not like this came out of nowhere for Microsoft. They've been doing cloud stuff for a while. But still, like... And the PS5 is going to only have limited backwards compatibility with specific PlayStation 4 titles, and nothing else. There's no backwards compatible for PS3 or PS2 or PS1. PS Vita and PSP stuff is still stuck on handheld. Like, this is also why I keep old console hardware lying around, because, I mean, I like these old games, and some of them also still don't emulate well. Yeah. But also because, like, I don't know. And even with Microsoft's back compat, as good as they've been doing recently, there are some games that still run a little wonky, and obviously they can't get every game on there either because of licensing or technical issues or whatever. Or, like, just who owns the rights, because if the company's died, like, 30 years ago and then its rights are split between, like, all these different investment firms, what do you do with that? But those are issues I can understand. Like, that's issues with, like, GOG can't get this old game because who the hell owns it? Like, I understand that at least.
It took them forever to get the Blade Runner point-and-click adventure on there just because one guy had the code and owned it for 20 years before he decided to release it.
Yeah. And it's finally out, and thank God.
It's a cool game, yeah.
Yeah, but, like... It's not like Nintendo has anything to worry about with any of their first-party releases except for the odd times that they did licensed releases, like how they did Tetris Attack. Like, they'd have to pay the Tetris company, which, like, just pay the Tetris company, come on. Or
have the money, come on.
yeah, or there were a few other licensed releases they did, but sometimes they fix those, like, the original version of Punch-Out used to have Mike Tyson in it. And then there was the scandal with Mike Tyson, and they distanced themselves from that. But they re-released it still. Not only continued to re-release it on the NES, but on other platforms. And all they did is they replaced the character. They called him Mr. Dream, and he's a different sprite.
Right.
Or how, I can't remember if they re-licensed the stuff when, what's that game? Wave Race. When Wave Race 64 came out on Virtual Console, I think they either re-licensed the stuff from Kawasaki or they changed the textures so it no longer referenced them. Like, licensed stuff makes it more difficult, but let's not act like it makes it impossible. The only time when it becomes impossible is, like, say, somehow if Rockstar died and somebody wanted to re-release Grand Theft Auto 3, they'd have to somehow pay for all the licenses for all the different music in the game.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing that's really, truly, I think, impossible to re-release due to licensing is either A, when a company won't talk no matter what, or B, when the cost is just absurd. Like, oh, we gotta license a sports team? They're gonna charge out the ass. But, like, otherwise, if it's just like, yeah, this game's based on Lethal Weapon, just like, can you not approach the film studio or publisher and go like, yeah, how much would it cost for us to re-release this old-ass game? Like, because there are studios out there that are willing to deal with that. Like, we've seen re-releases of old licensed content where the studio was surprisingly like, oh yeah, we'll do it. Or sometimes it just takes a lot of work. Like, yes, the Scott Pilgrim game was delisted 10 years ago. And it's a good game, and it's finally coming out again. I mean, it took a decade.
Yeah.
But it can happen, partially because they had to deal with the license holders for the film, and also because they had to deal with Ubisoft. But they got it to happen.
Yeah, that's a funny thing about any game based on, like, any content that's based on movies. I've noticed that movie studios are much more heavy-handed about their copyright issues than
Yeah.
games are.
I mean, movie studios, one, they don't respect games as a medium. They see games as a marketing tool.
Yeah.
So
there's so many shitty games based on movies.
Yeah, because even if it's a good game, they don't care about it if they're not trying to promote that property anymore. Like, Ubisoft had to spend a lot of time, because there's like this classic Ninja Turtles arcade game by Konami, and like a bunch of people say it's really good. Ubisoft last generation got the rights to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then they did a remake of that game, which I think meant they had to talk to Konami as well, and then that's delisted because they were doing it, I think, to promote like the new Turtles movie / Nickelodeon show, and now the film studio doesn't care about that, or because they moved the license to someone else, like Ubisoft doesn't have it anymore. And then it's a complicated thing where like the film studio owns the rights to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Who knows if the comic rights are somewhere else? Ubisoft made this remake, Konami made the original game, and it becomes like a whole big net. But like, if they would talk to each other, I'm sure they could all make money. It's not like they're making money by not having the game out.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and that was the thing with the Scott Pilgrim thing, is like the original creator wanted that game back. The people who made the game wanted the game back. The Anamanaguchi, the people who made the music, wanted that game back. The fan wanted the games back. Everybody wanted it back. Only that Ubisoft and the film studio just weren't willing to play ball. They just were too stubborn for like a decade. It was only until the Switch blew up that I think they realized that they could do like a release on Switch and people would pay a larger price for it. Because they're doing like a limited release for, like, I think they're doing a limited physical run of the game. I mean, it might be available digitally forever, we still don't know. I mean, probably not forever, because, I mean,
That is somewhat of a compromise.
Yeah.
Tough to.
But it's so annoying that this stuff happens. Like, with movies, like, do you ever see movies disappear because of licensed content? Like, hardly ever. Almost never.
There's some cases, but not nearly as often as the case of games.
And I think the difference is how they license it. So, like, say if a movie wants a licensed song or they want a brand, what they do is they pay a licensing fee and they get perpetual licensing for that individual product. So if you want to play a bunch of The Cure songs, or you want to, for some reason, like, have the Raid Bug Killer be a plot point in your movie, and it's not an ad, for some reason you want that specific brand to be represented, you pay money, but you can re-release that individual film as many times as you want and not have to pay licensing again, either because you paid perpetually or because a certain percentage goes to them each time. Like how the band that made the theme song for Friends has a fuck ton of money because they get royalties every time Friends is aired, even on syndication. But Friends never has to go off the air because of Friends never has to go off the air because of this song.
No.
Oops, my game closed.
No worries.
We can also do another campaign or do something else if you want. I just have to close it. I have to end the process. But with games, they don't pay for those same perpetual licenses. And I don't know if it's that game studios don't want to pay that, or because they hate paying out royalties, because they do. I mean, they don't pay voice actors royalties. They don't pay anyone royalties, really. I don't know if it's that other people aren't willing to provide the same licensing to game studios, or if it's because game studios and publishers themselves don't want to pay for that.
Right.
I'm gonna start up Left 4 Dead again if you want to, and we could just do survival.
Right.
Yeah, I like how.
Well, if you're good, I might dip out tonight.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you want to keep talking, or are you just gonna leave?
Oh, it's good to talk for me in a few minutes. My bedtime's earlier than it used to be.
That's okay. I like how this Left 4 Dead playthrough has essentially turned into a podcast, where we played Left 4 Dead at the beginning, and now it's just a podcast.
Yeah, now we're just talking about like how game companies go about things with roleplay.
Yeah, I mean,
On the whole.
I just wish that they could license like Hollywood, or they're like, yeah, sure, maybe we can't use this song in every, I don't know, maybe we can't use the Mad World song that was in the Gears of War ad and Gears of War 3 for every Gears of War game, but Gears of War never has to disappear because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which Microsoft seems interested in talking with other companies, because none of those games have stopped becoming available. Like, you can still buy the old Gears games, even if Gears 3 has licensed music in it. But not only that, but, so do you know about Too Human?
Vaguely.
So, like, Too Human was a game made by Silicon Knights, which is dead now. And the thing about Too Human is it was supposed to be like this epic Western RPG that had to deal with Norse mythology, but also like robots. It's really bad. But it was supposed to be Silicon Knights' Hail Mary. It was like their big, huge, ambitious project. But it had a ton of development issues, partially because they went for a bunch of really weird systems that were hard to polish and nobody liked. Partially because it, I think, originally started out as a project. Like, it went between all three console platform holders and ended up with Microsoft in the end. Like, it was going to be a Nintendo project, it was going to be a Sony project, it ended up being a Microsoft project. Because different studios, different companies were interested, and then partway through the development, they were like, no, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. Which also meant that it's changed hardwares multiple times, so, like, this game was a mess. It may have been conceived as a mess, but it also went through development hell. But the big nightmare is that they were trying to develop with Unreal Engine 3. And that early on in Unreal Engine 3's life, it was a nightmare. You really had to know what you were doing. There's no way Epic Games could have offered enough support to everyone trying to develop on it. And also just the new console hardware had a lot of issues. So, Silicon Knights had a lot of trouble using Unreal Engine. And instead of changing engines or just moving forward, having trouble, they decided to sue Epic Games, saying that Epic was focused more on their own products than developing the engine so that other people could use it. Essentially, the idea was that Epic was sabotaging other games, and that Epic was purposefully not working on Unreal Engine 3 so their games would look like a false advertisement to it, which, yeah, Epic had better luck with Unreal Engine than other developers did with, Gears of War and with Unreal Tournament 3, but Epic probably also had better luck with Unreal Engine because they built it to work with the way that Epic makes games, because of course it's their own in-house technology. Of course they know how to use it. They've known how to use it since before it was out. And the idea was that Silicon Knights stopped using Unreal Engine, or so they said, and sued Epic and said, hey, we stopped using Unreal Engine because you're lying to us, because look at Gears of War, that looks amazing. Our game doesn't look amazing. It's your fault. Not only did Epic not lose the lawsuit, Epic countersued because when Silicon Knights said that they stopped using the Unreal Engine after the game came out, they proved that Silicon Knights stopped licensing the Unreal Engine, but there was a lot of Unreal Engine code in the final game.
Oops.
So essentially they wanted to stop paying for Unreal Engine, but the game was already, mostly made.
From Unreal Engine 3.
Yeah, and they decided to just sue Epic instead because it was hard to use. And so that game was ordered to be pulled off store shelves and couldn't be sold digitally. So now this game was like, physical copies that were new were destroyed, and it was impossible to get a hold of unless you found a used physical copy.
Yeah.
And so we thought that was going to be the end, and no one was going to play it again unless you happened to have a physical copy or if you pirated it. Last year or 2 years ago, it popped back up on the Microsoft Store for free as a backwards compatible game on the Xbox One. And it's still there because Microsoft talked with Epic, and Epic agreed that they could re-release the game as long as they didn't charge for it, as long as nobody was making money off of an unlicensed Unreal Engine game. So, that's something that you would never think would become possible for anyone to play ever again, because it was using an unlicensed engine, and the original company lost a lawsuit. Legally, this couldn't be released. It wasn't just licensing, it was this game is under bad legal grounds because it was developed illegally using someone else's technology.
Yeah.
So, if that can get re-released, anything can get re-released. There just has to be someone willing to try.
Exactly.
Not only that, but, Microsoft did that because obviously they own Silicon Knights because it was a first-party published game. But they also got the original Prey re-released on Xbox. They talked with Bethesda and the people who owned the licensed music in Prey, and they got it re-released as a backwards compatible game. You can buy Prey right now for $20 on Xbox One digitally or on Xbox 360. And that was another game that not only did people not think was going to get re-released because it didn't sell that well and because of the licensed music, but Microsoft doesn't even own it, and they still worked to get it re-released. As much as, again, I don't trust Microsoft because don't trust big companies.
No.
They do care about making sure these games are available.
Yes, that's true.
On the flip side, a lot of Forza games get delisted because of the licensed music.
Ouch.
On the flip side, the games always go on a deep sale or are given away with Xbox Live Gold right before they get delisted.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Microsoft can make a game that was developed on an unlicensed copy of Unreal Engine 3 re-released, and if Microsoft can get a game that they don't even own re-released, why can't Nintendo dump their ROMs online?
Yeah, it's a big question that I feel like maybe younger users of Nintendo products don't necessarily think about, but somebody in our age range, or especially older, probably thinks about all the time.
I mean, yeah, I'm pro-piracy in a lot of regards. I mean, one, if you don't have money, it's not like the company's losing money. And two, I think it's fine to pirate stuff from big companies. Pay indie artists if you can. Or the other thing is, do what I generally do. I thought the Civ 4 demo of 100 turns wasn't enough to determine if I wanted Civ 4. So I pirated it, I played it, I had fun with it, and so because I had fun with it, I bought it.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh, no, I did the same thing with like mixing plugins.
yeah,
I pirated a version of I think it was like Slate, like the Steven Slate collection. I was like, oh well, I don't like this at all, so I'll just uninstall it and never buy it.
yeah, I mean, like, that's...
But like say like FabFilter or something, I was like, yeah, I dropped the money on FabFilter products because they were objectively good for me,
And
and I dropped the money.
and
But not on Slate.
do you know how many game series I got into by pirating older versions, and then when a new game released, I was like, I really like this. Like, originally, I played the Phoenix Wright games pirated because they were very hard to buy. You know, you had to buy physical DS cartridges, and they weren't super common, and they were in high demand.
No.
So I pirated them for my R4. But then later, when the games were available digitally on 3DS, in like a collection, I bought them. Like, I bought the Phoenix Wright game, the games that I had pirated, and I bought more of them because I had become interested in them. And I don't know if the same thing would have happened if I never got to play them. And like, the same thing happened with like Radiant Historia. Like, I finished it on DS, pirated, and then when they re-released it on 3DS, I had to get it because I was like, I really liked this game. It was a really good niche game, and even though I've already finished it, they deserve the money for that first purchase. It just wasn't that available, you know?
No.
And now it's available, so I can give the developers money for it. And also there's just the question of like, for content or for region, like the pricing, like say if you live in a region where games cost like half a year's income,
oh god, yeah,
like what are you supposed to do, just not experience any video games? I think
the temptation becomes too strong to not want to try to pirate some certain things.
Yeah, I think where piracy becomes really wrong is one, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where if everyone pirated everything, that would be a serious issue.
Yeah.
So buy things when you can.
Well, I think pirating sometimes, like, the ethical cutoff becomes, like, how much you could have paid otherwise. Like, I was talking at a community college one time, it was like, yeah, dude, I found, like Logic, found a crack for it, and I just downloaded it, and, like, I'm using it ever since. Like, well, Logic is several $100s.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I used to use
like,
pirated versions of Adobe products because it's like, I'm using pirated Adobe products because I will never be able to afford them. I cannot drop $1,600 on, like, Flash.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing about, like, with using, like, digital audio software. If you're cracking digital audio software, you have the wrong mindset because you can pay for digital audio software that's much less expensive than mainstream products,
Yeah,
or for free.
I mean,
Digital audio software products you don't have to pay anything for.
yeah,
That's
like
what-
like
if you're
Audacity.
cracking yeah, exactly. If you're like using a crack for a product that's otherwise $400 to $500 because it's worth $400 to $500 for the features that you can't get with another DAW. For me, that's like an ethical problem because it's like no, I pay for Studio One and I pay for every upgrade because Studio One is like a unique and special product.
Yeah,
I
mean,
would never even think to crack that product because it's like I know there are people who work day and night to code that product to make it as good as they can. And if I'm just leeching off of some, I don't know, some dude from a foreign country who has the free time to crack a product, that's a problem. Because then you are kind of stealing money off their plate after that's their point.
I mean, I mean, because the thing is that if you're pirating stuff when you can afford it and you're using it all the time,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think you should, except, yeah. And the other thing where I think piracy isn't necessarily okay is people who pirate products to redistribute them as like bootlegs, like bootlegging.
Yeah,
like, say, I made a copy of this Blu-ray, I'm charging you below market prices to sell this movie that I had no involvement in making. Like, that's messed up, especially because we live in an era of digital media. Like, it's not even like, well, you're paying me for the convenience and because it's on a VHS tape. It's like, no, I'm downloading a file. Like, it's not like you have to pay I mean, there's file hosting, but like, it's not like I'm getting a physical object. And even then, like, I don't know. I don't think you should make money off of something someone else made. I also don't think companies should necessarily make money off of something they didn't make. But I also don't think you should. So I'm against that. And yeah, like, do you need Pro Tools specifically? Like,
No,
if you're gonna, yeah, like, you don't have to pirate Pro Tools.
Yeah,
you can buy something that's cheaper.
Yeah, Reaper is $70, and one of my tutors at Northwest University said that Reaper is almost objectively as powerful as Pro Tools, and it's less than half the price. So what excuse do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people just want to do it because they don't want to pay for anything. But
because they can't.
I mean, we also have to recognize that most of the people who pirate, I mean, there are people who definitely pirate because they can.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the times it's an availability issue, either because it's like way priced out of your range, like I don't know, like the example I used where in some games regional pricing is just absurd, or just where it's like they re-released this old game, but for some reason they re-released it and it's really expensive, and the physical copies that are old are also expensive. Like, that makes sense. And also if it's just not available. The other thing that I would be curious to hear your thoughts about are, what about for ethics? So let's say I really loved Harry Potter, which I don't. But let's say I did, and I want to buy that new Harry Potter game. But even if J.K. Rowling isn't working on the project, you're supporting her, and she's a huge transphobe who advocates for conversion therapy and torture of trans people, and that they should essentially be illegal, that trans people shouldn't be allowed in public spaces.
Yeah, she's
she's a TERF, she's misogynist. She writes under a man's pen name because she thinks they'll buy books from her if they think she's a man, and she uses the pen name of like one of the guys who was the first person to like advocate for conversion therapy on purpose.
She's an odd bird, to say the least.
Yeah, so ethically, buying this wizard game would be wrong.
Yeah. But
so then,
game though,
then you would pirate it. But then some people ask, what about the developers? Don't the developers make money? I mean, one, if you're using that as an excuse to buy this game instead of, supporting trans people, go to hell. Because the developers are getting paid anyways to make the game.
Well, I think that statement is made under the assumption that, like, if you're a developer, you're probably being paid hourly wage. You are not profiting off the profit of the game.
Yeah. Okay.
You were being paid an hourly wage. So you're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, but
as long as they're working, they're being paid. Yeah. If you want to screw over a AAA company from their money, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the libertarian in me that thinks like, fuck them.
Well, I mean, it's also because they're also big game publishers are also all unethical hellholes that treat everyone like shit.
Yeah. No.
So it's not like supporting Ubisoft is a good move.
No, nobody would ever agree with that.
But my thought has always been also, let's say you can't ethically support one product. Like, say, all those people who didn't want to see Ender's Game because they'd be supporting, the writer to Ender's Game. Yeah. Because he's an awful person. My idea has always been, like, maybe pirate that, and then if you have to support them, pay for something else the studio or the publisher made that you weren't going to anyways. That way you aren't directly supporting, like, say, J.K. Rowling, but say the studio still gets the support. Because I think piracy as a form of protest is valid. Like, if you're going to be supporting awful people like Rowling, which I cannot stand people trying to come up with any excuse they can to continue supporting Wizard Book Lady, like, please stop. Also, please read another book. Like, for the love of God, read another book. Like, there are so many books. There are so many books better than Wizard Book. Wizard Book was always problematic. You just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Please read another book.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, that no, I get where you're coming from because, like I said, I mean, it's one of those things like when it comes to what we buy as individuals.
Oh, are you still there? Hello? Hello? Is my computer frozen?
It's wings things where it's like, yeah, is my money actually going towards the cause that the face of this company is going to contribute to? Maybe yes, maybe not. I feel like it's important not to overthink that, but yeah, I think it's also important to discriminate against certain companies that at the end of the day, like, do truly at all levels discriminate.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm.
I'll never spend I'll never spend a cent on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that was
Like,
gonna be
here,
the example I'd use.
yeah, like even if I could eat chicken, if I wasn't allergic to chicken, I wouldn't even consider spending spent on Chick-fil-A because, like, yeah, they fund organizations that want to illegalize gay marriage.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that no chicken sandwich can ever be good enough.
Exactly. And even if it
Um,
was, I wouldn't spend the money on it anyway.
yeah, like,
But at a level of like a game company or like, I don't know, a publisher that publishes Harry Potter books, at that point it becomes so vague it's hard to tell where your money's really going. Like I said, our people who are working for an hourly wage are going to be paid their hourly wage, and the CEOs of those companies will profit however much they profit. But
yeah, I mean, the
as
thing
much
is
as
with, yeah,
yeah,
the
as
thing is
much as
with
we can be
games,
intentional with our money, be intentional with it.
yeah,
When it becomes vague, maybe don't think about it so much. But
I
yeah,
mean, the thing is that no matter what happens, if you buy a Harry Potter product that's officially licensed, money does go to Rowling, no matter what. Money goes to her, and she is the face of transphobia. Like,
yeah,
so I think that is unethical. Like,
yeah,
she's like a public face. It's not just that she is transphobic; it's that she's like an advocate for transphobia as a
yeah,
whole. And transphobia is always tied into, homophobia and misogyny. Always. Like, Wizard Lady's an awful person. But,
yeah.
like,
She
the
clearly has problems.
the thing is that the developers are fine. They get paid before the game releases. And also, unfortunately, you might worry about, like, well, if the game doesn't sell enough, the studio might close. Unfortunately, in the world of video games, it doesn't matter. The studio could close anyways. I mean, Maxis, the creator of what used to be the best-selling PC franchise of all time, The Sims,
Yeah.
still closed.
No,
Like,
yeah. Well, that's a harsh reality I learned when I was in sound design class. The guy who taught the sound design class was one of the audio leads at the company that makes the Forza games.
oh yeah,
And one of the weeks he was like, "Okay, guys, we got a guest speaker coming in, and if any of you guys follow gaming news, please don't bring up the fact that the company that a lot of his friends worked for shut down and lost all their jobs, because that'll make him really depressed."
yeah, and it just happens for no reason because
Yeah, what is he telling us? It happens all the time. Like AAA company studios will just shut down because the gaming industry right now is so unpredictable that if it's not profitable, it will just disappear.
well,
There's,
the other thing is that even if studios are profitable, one of the reasons they shut down studios is because you need to have the perpetual, like the illusion of perpetual growth for your shareholders. So they
Mhm.
often lay off a ton of people or shut down studios near the end of a financial quarter to make their expense projections look lower than they actually are, so that it looks like they're turning a bigger projected profit than they reasonably can.
Yeah,
This happens regularly all the time, and it's also why, like, Blizzard will fire 400 people, and then in 2 months they'll be hiring 400 people. And even if they're the same people, it's not even that they fired them because they didn't need them or because they're losing money, because they're not. It's just that they've decided that their business model includes making people not have jobs so that they can pretend they're making more money than they really are.
yeah,
So, unfortunately, especially when it comes to video games, um, it doesn't matter necessarily how successful a studio is. That's no guarantee for their future success of their jobs or the payment of their workers. Uh, it, it, game publishers are whack, and at any point they could close or merge or change, like it's like, especially with EA.
Oh God, don't even mention.
I mean,
So-
crazy how Westwood was split into two developers and then renamed, and then one half was closed, and then the other half was closed, and now we have the Command and Conquer Remastered Collection. Because they decided, oh, your main product, which we decided to pivot you into, isn't making enough money, even though it's still making money. So we're going to close you because nobody cares about real-time strategies, and then, oh, would you look at that? People always cared about real-time strategies. It's just that the market was too saturated, and also you wanted to make money from consoles also, and maybe that was not the best genre for it. Like, it's never that it was not profitable. It was that it was never profitable if you put the same amount of money into it that you put into a Halo game. Like, you're not going to be making Halo 3 levels of money, but you're still going to be making money.
Yeah. Which is why it's actually like over the years, like if you were ever to like do anything that had to do with creating content in the game, you would be better off just writing about it than trying to be involved in the industry.
Well, I mean, even then, so many journalism websites have shut down. They've all conglomerated.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like I've noticed a lot of gaming journalism websites have gotten pretty anemic over the years. I think the thing that opened up my eyes to just how anemic and unqualified so many gaming journalists were was when Doom Eternal came out. And as you've noticed, Doom Eternal is a little more challenging than the last Doom title.
Yeah.
And so game journalists' responses to that was that, oh, Doom Eternal's too hard. And Doom Eternal has too many enemies that are too hard to deal with, and so it's not a good game. And so like, you know how bad I am at games, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've only been PC gaming off and on for, what, 4 or 5 years, maybe? At best.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's like, other than Flash games and stuff like that, like, the first time you played a first-person game was, as we said earlier, it was Halo, because I brought my laptop to TCC, and that was like, that was like 5 years ago.
Yeah. So here's my experience with Doom Eternal. I played it for a few hours, and I realized it was different than Doom, and then I adjusted. I watched a few people playing the game, and then I actually got really good at the game.
Yeah.
And I even got to the point where I could dispatch marauders, within 1 or 2 tries. And I'm watching these game journalists, these quote-unquote game journalists, just pissing and moaning about, oh, Doom Eternal's just, oh, it's just got all the wrong priorities, oh, the enemies are too hard. And like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm terrible at games, and I can run through this game at any difficulty as long as I do the right things and respect the game for the mechanics that it sets before me. And yet all these supposed game journalists who are apparently worse than me at games are decrying this game for being too hard, for being too unfocused. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? These people are worse than me? How? I don't even do this for a living.
Well, I think part of it is that game journalists often, you have to pump out so many reviews back to back to back that you don't have a lot of time to give games thought or consideration. I mean, it's the same thing that happens with music or movies, is that a lot of places have cut down on the number of reviewers, and the idea is they just fill their schedules so full. I mean, that's why you see difficult games, or sometimes even long games, like, get negative reviews, or reviews that they clearly haven't finished the game, because...
No, not at all.
I mean, I think one of the differences is that, the value proposition that we see is different than journalists, because one, if you pay for a game, you're going to want more content than if you have the game anyways to play it. And two, imagine how much different you'd feel about Doom Eternal if I told you had to play it and you had a schedule.
Right.
I'd
be in crunch time for sure.
Yeah, you'd probably be infuriated by things like, now you can play it at your own pace. You can say like, oh, this boss is hard, but I'm going to beat it. But if I told you had 2 weeks
to beat Doom Eternal?
Yeah, to beat Doom Eternal and then write a review on it.
Yeah, it can be rough.
I mean, I think that's part of it, and I think the other part is that from its inception, game journalism hasn't really been journalism. It's mostly been like an excuse to advertise for companies,
Yeah, that's true.
and to give previews of upcoming games. It's more gaming, you know. It's more of like a release schedule than it is real journalism. And unfortunately, as much as there are people within the games journalism space trying to bring it to higher standards, a lot of game journalism websites are being bought by bigger companies that are just consolidating them, mainly buying them for IP and server space, or just want to pump out the maximum amount of money and then shut them down. And
Yeah,
partially
no,
because of the way ad revenue works, the fact that pretty much all ad revenue is controlled by Google AdSense, the fact that a lot of gaming journalism died because Facebook lied about how much money videos made on Facebook, and they lied about how many viewers people made on Facebook. So a lot of websites pivoted to making video content, which was more expensive, and then found out that it wasn't nearly as profitable as they were being told, and then shut down.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why there was such a disconnect between the fan community for Doom Eternal, between the critic community for Doom Eternal. It's that, like, yeah, you made a good point. Is that I had the time to take a day to, watch some videos and look up some strategies online. And from that point on, I was golden. Like, I was able to develop my own playstyle. It was super fun. Whereas, like, a grain critic clearly had maybe 1 or 2 days to get a solid opinion on the game. It was a very complex game. The gameplay is very complex. And if you approach it the same way you did Doom 2016, you will fail. Like, the developers made it a point that you cannot spam anything in this game. You have to approach everything very methodically to succeed.
Yeah, and
If you don't have the time to figure that out, yeah, you'll probably just have to come to the hard conclusion. I don't know, maybe it's a shitty game, I guess.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing I've realized is that anytime that I feel like I have to play a game on a schedule, I don't like the game. Like, I feel like I like the game a lot less. I think that's why I was averse to game renting for a long time, because I knew some people who would always beat the game on a schedule so they could turn it back and get another game. And to me, that's a nightmare, especially because the way I play games is really weird. Like, sometimes it'll take me 3 years to finish a game just because I switch between things so often.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime that I feel pressured that I have to complete something, I find that I enjoy games more if I give it more time and more space. Because there are so many times where I completed a game in a blur and I'm like, I barely remember what happened.
Well, that's kind of the Doom 2016 experience, though. You can kind of run and gun your way through anything. And there's something kind of fun about that, actually. But
Yeah.
Doom, like, Eternal is so less forgiving. Like, I started the game on Kirby Plenty, which is like, I would regular. Like, 26. So, like, by the object that either.
And you like, since these games are being reviewed, there's no content online about them. Like,
No.
if you're stuck, you're stuck.
Yeah. Like, just now, there are, like, speed runs of Doom Eternal that are still more than 2 hours long.
I think the other thing is that even if a reviewer wants to give a game a certain score or review, sometimes the site will tell them to adjust it because they don't want fan backlash. Like, have you ever noticed how no matter what the review content says, any Mario game or Zelda game gets, like, a high score, like an 8 out of 10 minimum?
Yeah, I was watching of all things, like, a Donkey video on that. He said, like...
His video is actually really good on that.
Well, he points out the fact that reviewers will be very specifically negative about what they point out in the games, but at the end of the video, they still have to say it's like, oh, it's an 8 out of 10, though.
Yeah, because a lot of people only look at the review scores, partially because of Metacritic. They look at aggregated review scores, and if they see a review they disagree with, instead of, realizing that somebody might have a different opinion, or they might have a good reason for that opinion, or also that game opinions are often formed by where you are in a place or time. Like, if you're reviewing a game and something really shitty happened to you, and you're in a bad mood, that's going to affect your score, and you can't do anything about it.
No.
Like, as much as we want to remove bias, there's no such thing as an objective game review. There's no such thing. It's not true. It's media. It's highly subjective. And also, humans can't be 100% objective either way.
No.
But for some reason, people will take a game that they think is shitty getting a high score, a game that they think is good having a low score, as a personal insult, and they will see everybody else's opinion as an affront to their own. And
it's like the needle drop effect. Like Anthony Fantano.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Anthony Fantano says all the time, I'm not a music critic.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't care, and they still get angry.
Yeah, but they get angry when he gives an album a low score because he just honestly said what he didn't like about it.
Yeah, but a lot of people just look at that score and not consume the review content at all, and they'll just get angry. I mean, that's why the Jimquisition stopped doing review scores. And there have been some review outlets that tried that, but a lot of people come just to see the score. They want to go like, should I buy this game? Here's the score. Okay, I'll buy it. Or they go, I like this game. What do other people think? Let me get angry for them thinking different. Like, I've never understood that. And I do have to admit that sometimes there are reviews that I'll watch and I will get upset at a difference of opinion, but I have to remind myself that one, I think differently, and then two, sometimes I just get upset because I think their points were dumb. Like, there is this old video by Errant Signal, which he's also talked about how that wasn't a very good review.
Mm-hmm.
So I also don't want shit going to him, and also huge opinion difference. Where it was his video about how Half-Life 2 isn't as great as everyone says, and his main reasons were that people act like Alex is like one of the most fleshed out characters ever, when if you look at a bunch of other games, there are more fleshed out characters, and he's kind of right about that. I mean, if you look at it in the context of first-person shooter NPCs, she's pretty fleshed out. But if you look at it in the context of games in general, or games that lean more towards the RPG side, I mean, he's right. And his other thing was that, as amazing as it feels, it's just kind of a linear tunnel. And that was at a time where we were getting a ton of linear games, being tired of linear games, because this was like at the height of the Call of Duty linear tunnel shooter. Everything was linear, and now everything's non-linear, and linear games seem refreshing. And like, well, he was right. I kind of thought those arguments were dumb. It was kind of like, Half-Life 2 is bad because it's linear, and because your decisions don't actually affect anything, which is like most games. But he also wasn't being too serious about it, and I think it mainly came from a point where he was tired of everyone talking about how like Half-Life 2 is the greatest game ever made, and if you hear that for years and years and years, for example, if you sit around me and live with me, your name is Danny, and you're tired of hearing about Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I totally relate to you on that, because like, Half-Life 2 was such a special emotional experience for both of us. And
It was a special moment in time, even though we both played it way out from its release.
Even though we both admit that like Half-Life 1 is like maybe better for gameplay than it is.
Yeah. As much as I love it, I have a lot of problems.
Yeah, but I'm gonna play Half-Life 2 all the time because I love the world built.
Yeah, and it's harder to play through that game, but after you finished it. But it's still always going to hold a special place with me. But also, so many people got so pissed at him because he's pointing out that it's not a perfect game. And yes, his criticisms are all nitpicky. But I think his point was more that everyone pretends like it's a perfect game that can do no wrong, and that doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It has issues. And again, what if you only like open world games, or if you only like non-linearity, or if you only like games with very, very fleshed out characters? Not that Half-Life doesn't have fleshed out characters, but I mean more fleshed out on screen. Like, you spend a lot more time in depth with them. then you're not going to like it. And it's not even necessarily a flaw with the game. It's that there's no such thing as a perfect game for everybody. That doesn't exist. Like, if you only play like hardcore RPGs, does Tetris even have anything for you? It probably doesn't.
No.
Yeah, like, if you're only like, excuse me, I play old BioWare games and CD Projekt Red games, what's the appeal of Tetris 99? There probably isn't one to you, necessarily. And I think it was more the point of, can we stop pretending that any game is the one savior of all games and the best game, and that every game should be one game, because that's dumb.
Yes.
Yeah. And, like, as much as I have a taste in games, I'm trying to realize that, like, if I'm trying to recommend games to other people, like, there are a bunch of people that I know, especially people who are a year or two younger than me, who are like, old games, what the hell? Especially since I grew up with older technology because of money. So I'm like, yeah, I had a Super Nintendo when I was a small child. A lot of people in my age group did not. Because, you know, by the time I was 5, the PlayStation 2 was out. And so a lot of people will look at a PS1 game and go, like, that's fucking ugly, and it has super long load times, and the controls are awkward. Why would I ever touch this? And I have to realize that, like, as much as I love PS1 games a lot, I don't know, not everyone's the audience. And also you have to stop taking it so personally, because to a lot of people this is a crusty old game and it's going to take too much work to get out of it, and they can probably get something out of something else. And even if I like a crusty old game, you know, for some people that's a huge hoop to jump through, and I don't have to take it as, oh no, everyone hates old games, everyone's stupid, I'm the smart one. I'm the smart one for liking old games, they're all wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a good, because, well, and I think that's why I'm so into older games, is that, at the risk of sounding, like, biased, I think the problem with a lot of modern action games is that, especially shooters, because, you know, I'm like 90% of the time I'm going to play a shooter, right?
Yeah.
And 90% of the times, if I'm going to play a shooter, I'm probably going to play an older shooter.
I mean,
because newer shooters rely too much on physical skill and the complexity of their weapon system than on just, like, being able to run through a gameplay situation creatively in about 2 or 3 different scenarios.
I mean, like,
At best.
I mean, old games, old shooters and new shooters are similar in that they're both built on set pieces. But the difference is that new shooters are based on narrative set pieces, you know, like action movie moments.
Yeah,
you know,
like a plot series, obviously.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily bad. And
no, always.
Old games are based on set pieces, but instead it's gameplay set pieces. It's that they're...
Which is what I appreciate about like Quake or Doom. They may seem clunky, but at the end of the day, they're still solid, objectively good games because you have a clear objective, and you just have to be good at fulfilling that objective.
Yeah, I mean, like, the difference is that, like, say, if you play, like, a modern shooter, it might be like, uh-oh, we're on a train, and the train's moving fast, and you have to shoot enemies, and oh no, the train derailed. And the difference is, like, say, if you play Doom 2, it's like, this room is full of explosive barrels, don't miss any of them.
Yes.
And those are just two different kinds of setups. I mean, one is much narratively thinner, or even if they're both thin narratively, one has a lot more presentation in it, like the newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it also depends on where you get the depth. Like with modern shooters, most of the depth is saved for the multiplayer modes.
Yeah.
Like the single player is usually just like training for the multiplayer, and it's like a fun ride that you do that isn't very replayable mostly. Like you just kind of go through it and go like, wow, that was a fun 4 hours. And then you shoot people online for the rest of the year. While something like Quake, even though it does have multiplayer, I would say the focus is on creating a much more... it focuses on different skill set.
Yes.
It's more about like adapting to new weird situations, and it's more about... I would say older shooters are much more movement-based. I mean, accuracy is important too, but I'd say newer shooters are more about precision accuracy and knowing when to advance between different cover spots, while old shooters are more about dodging incoming hazards.
Yeah, yeah. It's more about like when like I was talking with my friend Cameron about the term game sense, especially in the way that it refers to modern games, whether it be something like whether it be Destiny, like the Crucible and Destiny, or Titanfall multiplayer. It's important to have game sense, which is why like you and me have been like kind of jerking off Titanfall 2 for so long because we know that it's the kind of game that rewards game sense, it rewards speed, it rewards accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, much like Half-Life, I would say that Titanfall is the best of both schools of thinking. Like, Titanfall has a ton of crazy visual set pieces, but every
Sure.
visual set piece is also a crazy gameplay set piece. Like, this entire level's a factory that builds prefab houses. Like, that's a crazy visual set piece, but it's also a crazy gameplay set piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it changes up the gameplay. And same with or the singular level where there's time travel. Like, crazy to look at, crazy to play, and
Yeah, and it's there just long enough to be enjoyable.
like, it's here, you adapt to it, they put a twist on it, and then you move on. Kind of like how a lot of Mario levels are built. Like,
Okay.
they introduce a mechanic, they escalate the mechanic, they put the twist on the mechanic, and they're like, we're done, next thing.
Yep, that. I feel like that in that sense is like, yeah, that's how you should approach variety to gameplay. Is like make really engaging concepts, but don't overstay your welcome.
Yeah. In terms of, like, linear shooter campaigns. Yeah.
Especially that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I like, but, I mean, I think the big problem with Titanfall, I mean, one is the high skill, which is what I love it for. A lot of people don't love it for that. I mean, especially because a lot of people play games because, like, I just had a hard day at work. I just want to come home and mindlessly do something for 2 hours. And Titanfall maybe asks too much of those people.
Titanfall does have a pretty high like skill level cap as
Yeah.
as far as the multiplayer. Like I've helped my team win in more than a few multiplayer matches, but it's one of those things like you will enjoy it more if you are better at the game than I am.
Yeah, and I think it's just also brand recognition. Like,
Yeah.
Titanfall 1 was poorly timed, especially with being $60 and being multiplayer only, and also missing the Sony consoles, which I think hurt the game overall. And then Titanfall 2 was also poorly timed because even though it had a campaign, a lot of people were already turned off from the game from Titanfall 1. 1, for not having a campaign. 2, because a lot of multiplayer games that get a campaign later end up having campaigns like Battlefield 3 or 4, which were awful campaigns.
Well, yeah, it was sandwiched between like the release of two other more known titles, which is
Yeah.
just a fucking obvious mistake. But
Yeah, and like, it came out at a bad time. It was a weird time for gaming. There was a lot going on that year in gaming to pay attention to.
yeah,
The community decided that it hated EA again that year because they go back and forth between, hey, I hate EA, and hey, EA's not that bad because they released a game that I like.
yeah, that's the trouble with EA though.
Yeah, they were in the crosshairs. I mean, the thing is that they're always the problem.
Yeah.
They're always a problem. People just forget that because I hate EA. Oh, they've made a Star Wars game, though. Ooh. But also, I think the thing is that a series like Titanfall is, like, mostly aimed towards the PC crowd.
Pretty much.
Partially because of input. But not only was Titanfall 1, like, the servers were pretty much abandoned on PC because of no crossplay. And also because it was kind of poorly optimized for PC. Like, it was like a 50 gigabyte game before that was normal because of the way the audio was in Titanfall 1. So I think that turned a lot of PC people off from the game. And then 2, just because it was behind Origin.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. That's the game service that not most people are going to want to jump on.
Yeah, I mean, I think now is the best time for Titanfall 3 because, one, Titanfall 2 came to Steam, and a lot of people bought it. 2, because a lot of people have been talking about buy this game for 1,000,000 years. 3, a lot of people played it because it's constantly on sale and also is a PS Plus game. And 4, I think there are a lot of people who otherwise Titanfall was not even on their radar. because of Apex. And as much as people from the Titanfall subreddit want to shit on Apex, if they release the Titanfall 3, it would give it a much bigger audience because people now know about the universe, and even though the movement systems in Apex are a lot simpler than they are in Titanfall, a lot less skillful, a lot of people still like that about Apex, and I think that that's a good intro to those movement systems, even if the style of the game is entirely different. I think now's the perfect time for them to release it. But who knows? I also don't care for Apex Legends, really, but I don't care for Battle Royales. Also, if you're talking, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if your mic went out. Oh, I can hear something now.
Oh, sorry. I think I went you there for just a second.
Oh, you're okay. I just wasn't sure what happened.
No, you were saying about the Titanfall came out in 2016 and the timing and such.
Yeah, I was saying that now would be the perfect time for Titanfall 3 because of...
No, I agree.
Yeah, because of more people playing it, because of people who won't stop harping on about it, and because I think Apex is a good thing for the possibility of a Titanfall 3. As much as people on the Titanfall subreddit want to be elitists about it. I don't even care for Apex because I don't like Battle Royales. And I do love Titanfall 2, but I'm also not going to act like me playing Titanfall 2 and not playing Apex makes me better.
Well, that's the thing about Titanfall 2. I think we have YouTube content creators to thank for finally giving Titanfall 2 the exposure that it deserves.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially the multiplayer aspect. If the multiplayer aspect is so objectively fun, I'm terrible at games, and I think when I'm in the right mood, Titanfall 2 multiplayer is just fun as hell.
I think the big thing that's different about it is that it's PvP and PvE. If you're terrible at shooting other pilots, you can farm the bots and then get into Titan. And so I think that's the thing that makes it so much fun while also having a high skill ceiling, because you don't even necessarily have to be good to be able to feel like you're doing good.
Yeah. Well, that's what's good about the campaign too, is that even though the campaign story itself is a little on the generic side, if you put it on the highest difficulty, the campaign itself can be a really fulfilling, challenging experience.
Yeah, it can be super tough, and as much as the story isn't super deep, it's I get to go through these fun moments with this robot pal who I like. He's a good robot pal. And then you're sad when the robot pal dies.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as much as it isn't it's not Oscar worthy. I mean, a lot of times that's what you need. I feel like there's a lot of something that I really miss that has come back. Something that used to be really big in the PS2 era specifically was the B tier game. It was the game that's not an indie game, but it's not a AAA game.
Right.
It's a smaller scale, it has less production value, and maybe it's more experimental because there's less money going towards it. But, I mean, the Gym Positions talked a lot about this, but also Digital Foundry talked a lot about it in their tech review of Destroy All Humans, the remake. And they talked about how Pandemic Studios used to put out multiple games every year. And they could take more risks with them because each game was much lower budget, and that also meant that their whole career wasn't riding on the success of one game, which meant that they got to make things like Destroy All Humans the same year they could put out a Star Wars Battlefront game.
Right.
Yeah. And I kind of miss that. Because as much as I do love things that are they're technical showstoppers or look what they can do, I mean, one, that's not always the best route because there's the whole Red Dead Redemption 2, did everything need a bespoke animation? Was all the money and the animator's time worth it? Did it actually make a better product? But two, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get anymore. I mean, it seems to be coming back, and I hope it sticks around for the next console generation. Also, as much as PC gamers don't want to act like it does, console specs do change PC development.
Yeah.
This isn't the 90s anymore, or the 80s. Consoles moving forward does mean things, and also consoles having worse specs is not the end-all be-all, because yeah, sure, you can get better specs on a PC, but can you get those same specs on a PC and spend $400? Like, if you spend $500 to buy like an Xbox Series X, can you get those same specs for $500 on a PC? Even if you upgrade, probably not.
It'd be very hard to do so, honestly. Well,
Like-
yeah, that's the thing about like console versus PC. PC, you can run it at like maximum performance versus console, but the console will perform pretty consistently.
Yeah,
It's a well-optimized game.
not to mention that like PC is a 3080, and I'm like, well, yeah, the 3080 is very expensive, and they're like, well, it's cheaper if you build it yourself, and I'm like, you do realize that a lot of people who play on console and a lot of people who play on PC don't want to build it themselves, or maybe can't build it themselves. Maybe they aren't even capable. Like, even if they tried, maybe they would not be capable.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you're spending money on a 3080, and you don't have like all the money in the world to spend, you'll have to compromise on the motherboard. You'll have to compromise on the CPU. You'll have to compromise on the case, possibly, which affects your airflow. It's like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple at the end of the day.
Yeah, like, can we stop all pretending? And, like, can we also stop pretending that consoles are better because of exclusives? Which, one, there's PC exclusives. Two, exclusives aren't necessarily good for anyone. I mean, there's the argument to be made that a game can do more things if it's exclusive for one piece of hardware. And it depends. But also, a lot of times, a company, like, unless they're fully funding the game themselves, a company is often paying to take away a game from other people rather than giving it to you. Like, the fact that Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition will only have ray tracing on PS5 isn't because Sony developed that ray tracing and spent the money. It's because Sony paid money to Capcom to have the best version of the game. Exclusive to their platform. It's not like other platforms can't have it. It's because they're taking it away from other people. I mean, there is something to be said. Like, you heard about the Series S controversy, right?
I've been hearing things here and there.
Yeah, so the Series X having lower stats inherently isn't necessarily a problem. Like, it has the same CPU and GPU architecture as the Xbox One X. I mean, Series X. They're clocked a little bit lower, but that's because it has a lower target resolution, lower target frame rates. So, like, you're not going to be seeing a lot of 120 hertz games there. And no ray tracing, but, like, you know, I think, pretty sure. But the problem is that, like, you know, one of the biggest ways that PCs are better than consoles is memory. Like, PCs have always beat consoles, like, blew consoles out of the water in memory. Especially because when you talk about how much memory a console has, it's almost always unified memory, at least nowadays, in that they share the same memory for both CPU and GPU, which has some architectural benefits, while the PC generally doesn't. It's generally separate memory, so, like, even if my laptop, say, had 8 gigabytes of RAM, you're like, that's the same as the PS4, you might have to say, actually, no, I have 8 gigabytes of RAM for my CPU, and I have 2 gigabytes of VRAM. Which, in some cases, means I do have more memory, but it also means that if a game wants to use more VRAM, it can't. You know, because it's unified on the consoles, so they can choose how much memory goes to where. So, the Xbox One and the PS4 both have 8 gigabytes of unified memory. The PS4 has DDR4 memory, while the Xbox One has DDR3, so the Xbox One's is slightly slower, which was a problem for games on Xbox One, but, you know, they're mostly equivalent. Usually the Xbox One just performs a tiny bit worse and has a bit lower resolution, but that's talking about the base consoles, not even getting to the other ones. Okay, so the PS4 has 16 gigabytes of memory, which is DDR6, so only double the RAM, which usually the increase is much more between generations, but also technology slows down over time, just when it comes to what you can do with hardware innovation, just because you're fighting against physics. But DDR6, so it's much, 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 much faster. Very high bandwidth. I think the Xbox Series X has the same RAM config, I think. Let me look it up. Xbox Series X RAM. Like, how much memory does it have Let's see. Same thing, yeah. 16 gigabyte DDR6. Which there's also some argument to be made that necessarily the RAM upgrade doesn't need to be as much because we're on SSDs and we have such high bandwidth that you don't need to store as much as memory because you could swap out what's in memory much faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Which there is an argument to be made for that. The problem lies in the Xbox Series S having 8 gigabytes of memory, the same as the last gen. Now it is faster, but remember that we're trying to be running the next gen games just on lower configs on the Series S. And some people say, oh, well, texture resolution, it makes sense, because if you're going for 4K textures on the new consoles, you're going for 1080p or 1440p consoles, and the math works out to be the same. And while they're kind of right about that, they have to realize that we're already using all of the RAM up on current gen. And it gets a bit more complicated for, say, what if you want more physics interactions or larger game worlds or things like that? Well, that takes more RAM, and that has nothing to do with texture sizes. But then there's also this new technology in the Xbox where it dynamically allocates the textures and memory based only on what's rendered, because it also has an SSD so it can swap things in and out faster. And so that's supposedly going to make up for it. Okay, well, but what if a game engine requires a certain amount of RAM minimum? That doesn't necessarily make up for it. Or, what about Xbox Series X backwards compatibility? Like, you know how back-compat games are enhanced on the Xbox One?
Yeah.
They're enhanced even more on the Series X, and not the Series X, the Xbox One X. God, I hate this branding. It's awful.
It's really confusing.
Yeah, so the Xbox One X, which is the one that's already out, has more RAM than the Xbox One, but also more RAM than the Series S. Which means that the Series S couldn't necessarily do back-compat features that the Xbox One X can, if they're tied to memory. And while that dynamic texture reallocation is going to be good, that's not going to work for old games that weren't coded for it. So they might have better performance, but they might have worse textures than the Xbox Series X.
Right.
Not to mention that, why the fuck did I get a gift? Zach just sent me Jet Set Radio.
What? From where?
Just on Steam. He just gave me Jet Set Radio.
Did I?
No, not you, the other Zach.
Oh, Zach O'Neill. Oh, okay. Jet Set Radio? What?
Just out of nowhere, just like you've received a gift, Jet Set Radio. Okay. I mean, sure, I don't own the original Jet Set Radio. I have Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox, but I don't have a Dreamcast, and I never bought a digital version of Jet Set Radio as much as I intended to. Because they are technically different, because Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox was like a semi-remake.
Right.
It like remade certain sections of it, and redesigned certain sections of it, and redid some of the art assets, but like... So it was kind of like more about like a movie remake than a film remaster or a game remaster, except that it was a movie remake that came out like a year or two after the original game, so it's very faithful but also very not. It's really weird.
Well, it seems like the port is pretty solid according to user reviews, so
yeah,
why not?
It's a good port, and there are differences. So like playing Jet Set Radio Future is not exactly the same. Like it's not just minute differences. Like I think like one of the main villains is different.
Okay.
Like I think you get chased by a cop who shoots at you a lot in the original Jet Set Radio, and I don't think that happens in Future. The other thing is that Jet Set Radio Future, even though it was a dual stick console, didn't add camera controls to one stick, because if you think about it, the Dreamcast only had one stick. And Future, which was on the original Xbox, has two sticks, but you still can't use a stick for camera control. But the re-release of the original Jet Set Radio did add a stick for camera control. So it's a weird mess.
Well, I think I will dip out for the night. Probably go to bed in about 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Sorry for ranting about everything.
No, I had a good time talking about this tonight because, I mean, even though I'm not like personally invested in like anything besides PC, like I have an understanding of like certain business models and like even if I like the only console I would ever get into in the future is probably Nintendo, honestly, which is why I'm like so concerned with Nintendo
Yeah,
doing a little better with releasing retro titles. So I mean that's like up in the air whether they'll ever do that or not. But
I
no,
mean,
no, I had a good time talking tonight about all that,
yeah, I
especially
mean,
at least from a consumer point of view.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could do what I do is buy a console and then hack it near the end of its life. Like, if you buy a Wii U, I can hack it for you.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because there's so much that shit can emulate. And
Yeah,
if you buy a Switch, when the Switch is at the end of its life, I'll hack it for you because the hacking communities are so lively.
I should be able to jump on that at some point actually. So that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a Switch is probably a better investment. Only buy a Wii U if you want to emulate like, because a Wii U can play Wii games, Wii U games,
Yeah,
GameCube games, SNES games, NES games, N64 games, just like so much. But the Switch is portable. It has more games that you can actually like buy for it.
yeah, that's probably why I'm looking more towards the Switch than
to
anything else.
to be honest, get the Switch. As much as I
Yeah,
love the Wii U, get the Switch. But yeah, and also as funny as I'm joking about this becoming a podcast, if you do want to do this every week or 2 weeks, we could legitimately do that and just talk about weird video game industry stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know me, my perspective from work is kind of like centered a little behind the times. So yeah, if you ever want anybody on like a podcast for fun every week, like I'd be down to like talk about that and play some games while we do it as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
I mean, we
hit me
should.
up anytime when I do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we should talk about that tomorrow. For now, you should go to sleep. But to be honest, it sounds fun. Um, Especially since there's a lot of gaming podcasts out there, but none of them can cover everything.
That's true, and not to like blow smoke up your ass, but you because of how much you love games, you have a much more comprehensive knowledge of the history of a lot of game companies and game development than most people. So I'd say that's pretty valuable. I think people would be somewhat enlightened by the things that you just happen to know,
Yeah,
from the top of your head. So
yeah, I mean, I could upload this as the first episode, and then if it doesn't, then it'll be a funny joke. People can make fun of me for years.
yeah, well, I'd say anything we upload after the time we ended the Left 4 Dead campaign is pretty legitimate for for podcast material. So
Yeah, they're like, hey, you played Left 4 Dead for like half an hour and then talked for 2.5 hours.
yeah, that's funny, but it did work out that way. I'm totally fine with that. So
Yeah. All right. Good night. Hope you
good.
sleep well.
I probably will. I probably will. Good night, Vivs.
Bye.